Marvel, reincarnated as Killian. I am the master of technology. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Free Lunch? So, at this time, Ross tilted his head and looked at Killian and asked. A businessman came here not to sell products, but took the initiative to say that the technology was not mature enough. This sales method was the first time he saw it. So, how about this? We provide a technical team for free, your army gives certain support, and helps us test the actual combat data of the tyrant in the future. Of course, all the expenses in the battle will be paid by our company. Then, I hope General Ross can convince the military to support our company in the future when we initiate certain bills. After meeting Ross's gaze, Killian spoke directly. For him, the support of the military is also a top priority, so he doesn't mind paying a little more for it, or making less money in the future. What bill? You need to give me a rough idea, otherwise, no matter how good your product is, I can't promise you. Although Ross was a little tempted by Killian's proposal, it was only limited to being tempted. After all, free things are often the most expensive. He didn't want to become a traitor to the military because of a momentary decision. As you can see, although the Tyrant T-000 is powerful, it has serious intellectual defects. Even in its normal form, we cannot control it normally, such as issuing some simple commands. In the final analysis, the intelligence of creatures other than humans is too low. With the erosion of our products, the intelligence will be further reduced, so this also leads to the fact that this weapon can only be used to deploy on battlefields without any friendly forces. As a weapon, it is still too unsuccessful. At this moment, Killian pointed out the shortcomings of the tyrant bit by bit. He had every reason to believe that Ross wanted the tyrant to be more perfect and mature, even more than he did. Because he was just a businessman who made weapons, even if this weapon failed, he could still study other ones. Ross and others were people who used weapons, and they could intuitively judge whether a weapon was good or not. And now, there are weapons that are comparable to the power of small nuclear weapons, without the cost, and there is hope that they can achieve the same high-efficiency execution as special forces. How could he refuse? So you want to conduct human experiments? Oh, you are such a big company, can't you find donors who agree to human experiments? After seeing Killian nod without comment after he finished speaking, Ross couldn't help but look at him with surprise and said. It was like suddenly finding a dragon egg in a rat's nest. You know, there is no shortage of human experiments in the United States, because all drugs must be tested on humans before they can be put on the market. So as early as 1947, the American medical and legal communities took the lead in drafting the Nuremberg Code as the moral basis for the Nuremberg trials after World War II. The code clearly stipulates that human experiments with the consent of the subjects are legal. Even after that, there were scandals related to human experiments because the government conducted human experiments without the written consent of the parties involved. Therefore, the government finally issued regulations requiring hospitals and various medical units to obtain written consent signatures from patients in all similar human experiments. But as we all know, consent can also be interpreted. So even though the legal aspects have been improved a lot since then, there are still many companies that have started human experiments after obtaining the consent of the donors. Although the process is a bit tortuous, it should not be a big deal for a rising pharmaceutical company like Killian. Haha, of course it's easy to find experimenters, but it's hard to find qualified experimental subjects. Just like the tyrant you see now, it is the one with the best physique among dozens of the world's best chimpanzees selected after a huge reward of tens of millions of dollars worldwide. You can say that it is already better than an adult's physique. Not to mention that those who voluntarily signed the consent form are basically seriously ill and their bodies are almost disabled. My company is not interested in doing charity. Killian naturally knew what Ross said, and then pretended not to understand and continued. Of course, he knew what the other party meant by consent, but he would not wade into this muddy water, and then he would be exposed and attacked by superheroes because of illegal experiments, and then condemned by the media when the news broke. What he needs is the government and the military, two major forces to jointly support the human rights bill they introduced. That is, for those who violate major laws, such as murder, robbery and other major bad events, they will be sentenced to death, deprived of human rights, and no longer enjoy the protection of national laws. After their death, the government will organize and donate their bodies to contribute to medicine. Of course, Killian will put the last one in the most inconspicuous position. His own purpose is just to deprive these people of their human rights. They are originally a group of scum, why can't they be used as waste? You must know that the T-virus is a treasure trove. Every kind of creature, even every person, will give it an infinite evolutionary route. And what Killian needs to do is to discover and choose the best route. Just like the tyrant that the Umbrella Company was able to successfully develop later, it was by chance that they found a Russian soldier who was extremely strong and healthy and would not even become violent because of the virus. Then used the soldier's body to produce clones, creating conditions for the birth of the perfect tyrant. And now Killian is also looking for such a person. As for exchange, it's too expensive, not considered. Moreover, at this stage, what he needs is to slowly paint a pie for the military, rather than feeding it to them all at once. For example, now, in just one night, the tyrant T-000 has earned him more than 6,000 reputation. And what if Killian exchanges the complete tyrant? In the same scene, the same occasion, the maximum is 6,000. But if it is distributed to each other, it will be different, repeatedly harvesting, and iterative version updates. This is the basic operation of a good enterprise, a good company, to develop stably in the long run. Haha, you really think long term. On the other side, after listening to Killian's words, Ross laughed contemptuously. For Ross, Killian's behavior is obviously thankless, wanting to be a bully and erect a monument. It is nothing more than wanting to put the company on the moral high ground in advance and let it be within the scope of the law. In this way, even if the previous Radman incident occurs again, it is just something that has long been within the scope of the law. Chapter 52 New Technology Research and Development. It's just that these things are clearly agreed upon by everyone. They can easily do their own things in private, but they have to put them on the table and let everyone push them together. Even Ross can now imagine what kind of financial and material resources are spent behind the promotion of this bill. Ross has only one comment on this, that is, there is too much money, and it's panic. But for this reason, he didn't say anything. Anyway, it's nothing more than some moral and human rights issues at that time, and it won't cause too much trouble. Killian is willing to touch this mine, so go ahead. But if it's just a bill related to human experiments, then I can answer you now, there is no problem. You may even gain more allies at that time. Ross then left this sentence and turned to walk out. Now the cooperation between the two sides is officially reached. The military will use the turrets and teams provided by Killian for free in the experiment, and correspondingly, in the subsequent legislation, they must stand up to support them. And these are not difficult for Ross, so it's better to do a favor. Killian did the same. After getting what he wanted, he also looked at Congressman Kennedy. The two smiled at each other. Although the two did not make any money this time, sometimes relationships are also a huge fortune. As long as it is used well, it can be even more shocking than real money. After instructing the researchers on the scene to carefully clean up and recycle all the tyrant organizations on the scene, Killian went with Kennedy and flew back to Miami together. The next day, after arriving at the company, Killian called Dr. Otto, who was recruited at a high price, to the office. That is, Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man, whose real name is Otto Octavius. In the MCU world, because Spider-Man has just started elementary school, Dr. Otto is just a physicist who is keen on physics and thermonuclear celestial bodies. And the other party in this world did not have the idea of building a reactor. By chance, Killian found that the other party was still doing research in the university, so he recruited him to be mainly responsible for the signal development project. And this is Killian's next plan. Deploy 5G signals and enter the smartphone industry. This is the final decision made by Killian after many considerations. Because no matter which direction Killian develops in the future, signal transmission is the most important issue. The processing of artificial intelligence and the operation of robots require a lot of data processing and signal transmission as the core. The reason why the current Baymax is very intelligent is because the Baymax technology that Killian exchanged in the system includes advanced processing chips. Now, if it is miniaturized and coupled with the development of signal technology, a groundbreaking smartphone will sweep the world in a crushing manner. You must know that in the era when the public is still using the newly launched 2G signal mobile phones, which are mostly flip and slide, there is no need to say how much influence the full-touch smartphone has. You can imagine how terrifying it would be if the current Apple mobile phone was placed in 2000. And let alone the signal, even the most technologically advanced US military is only using 3G signals, and 4G signals are even still in theory. Killian directly started to invest in 5G signals, which is enough to monopolize the entire high-tech industry. Boss, you're looking for me. At this time, Dr. Otto also pushed the door open and walked in, then said to Killian in front of him with a smile. Here is the latest 4G signal technology, take a look first. After seeing Dr. Otto come in, Killian handed him the project technical information that had been prepared on the table. Full duplex technology, MIMO, waveform enhancement, network slicing. Is this 4G signal technology? This is incredible. I always thought that these technologies should still exist in theory. At this time, after taking the information handed over by Killian, Dr. Otto carefully read it for a while, and then after a burst of surprise at the information and technology that appeared in it, he looked at Killian in front of him with an unbelievable face after reading it. You know, he thought that these materials were just a reference at first, or a general research direction, but what he didn't expect was that all the core technical content had been written here. There are even notes in each color. It's just a foolproof manual. Even as students who just graduated from school can make it. Haha, our company has always been committed to benefiting the public in the field of science and technology. And 4G signal technology is also a technology we have been researching. It has just begun to mature recently, and the person in charge has resigned, so I thought of you. How about it? Do you have the confidence to complete it? After hearing what Dr. Otto said, Killian also explained casually. Of course, no problem. Dr. Otto nodded decisively. Very good, you take the information back to the laboratory, and after you have thoroughly understood it, you will be mainly responsible for the company's next communication project engineering. Then here is also a document on the latest smartphone pioneer. I ask you to use it as a template, and combine it with Dabe's smart chip to turn them into reality within a month, and make a physical object and complete the test. Can you do it? Then Killian handed a copy of the relevant technical information of a high-end smartphone to Otto, and said seriously. Haha, it's still a bit challenging. Wait for my good news, boss. After hearing that, Killian finally put pressure on him. Dr. Otto smiled with relief at this time, and then after he finished speaking, he picked up the information and walked towards his laboratory. After watching the door of the office close again, Killian turned around and looked at the sky outside the window. To be honest, these materials are ready-made. It can be said that as long as they are copied, they will definitely succeed, but if one person does it, it will take too long. He must have high-tech talents to assist him. And in the future, it will inevitably be like now. He provides the core technology and the final effect, and these people are needed to integrate and innovate in the middle. And this is the purpose of Killian's recruitment at a high price. It's a pity that the current Baymax is not enough to help him in artificial intelligence, otherwise, his scientific research progress will be greater. Chapter 53 Project Number 2 Research Success. In order to improve the artificial intelligence level of Baymax, in addition to the necessary host hardware equipment that needs to be fully upgraded for several generations, it is also necessary to achieve a global environment where the internet is used. This means that the birth of artificial intelligence not only requires strong hardware itself, but also requires the soil of birth, that is, everyone in the world uses smart devices. In this way, Baymax can truly break away from the chip server and exist in the network, and truly improve its capabilities in all aspects. Unlock the ability of artificial intelligence. And it is at this time that the real horror of artificial intelligence begins. Now Killian only allows Baymax's intelligence system to work in the laboratory with researchers to process and infer various data. It is conceivable that with the help of Baymax and its continuous terrifying learning efficiency, the originally complex data that requires a long time to deduce has also been shortened by more than half by Baymax. This is also the reason why the T-Virus project is progressing so rapidly. As we all know, the most difficult part of an experiment is often the data part, which happens to be the most basic point of artificial intelligence. Adding 2 by 2, the result is 1 plus 12. Boss, Project 2, research is successful. Just as Killian began to process the documents, a member of the Black Watch team came in and reported to Killian. After hearing the other party's words, Killian immediately showed a happy expression, dropped the documents directly, and strode towards the underground laboratory. After a while, after going through many security guards and password doors, Killian came to a medical laboratory. Boss. After seeing Killian come in, the main researcher Elias Banaga also spoke to Killian at this moment. Well, how is it now? After nodding, Killian looked at a man lying on a bed in the sterile room not far away and said, Boss, everything is ready, and the biological experiment has been successful. Now please allow me to introduce the specific project to you. First of all, our experimenter is the man in the room now. He is a veteran who retired from the battlefield. It's just that his wife and children almost died tragically because of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, after he came back. After we learned about the other party's situation, we found him as soon as possible, and he also cooperated very well and signed the experimental consent form. Now we will combine the memory editing of the T project with our latest brain control chip as a basis, and a brain control chip that can control the target's brain, modify memory fragments and change cognition has been born. Boss, the main purpose of our experiment this time is that we will delete part of the target's war memory, and fragment and blur most of it to reduce the experimenter's impression of the battlefield without forgetting it, and then add some memories we add to it, and then combine them to finally become a complete and unaffected perfect memory. From the reaction of the animal test subjects alone, the human brain control chip has mature feasibility. And now it is the final human test. Everything is waiting for your order. At this time, Elias Bain took the project information in his hand and began to report to Killian seriously. Let's get started. Then, with Killian's order, the staff in the laboratory began to get busy instantly. A doctor, assisted by his assistant, came to the laboratory and fixed the experimenter, who had already been injected with anesthetics for general anesthesia, on a medical cabin equipped with a robotic arm next to him. Then, along with the operation, the robotic arm also tightly grasped the man's limbs. After completely fixing the target, the doctor walked to the side of the surgical equipment, signaled the assistant to shave it, and then disinfected it in all directions. The doctor began to get busy. First, after checking and confirming the surgical position, he gently scratched the target's back of the head with a scalpel, and a perfect circle the size of a fingernail was instantly drawn. Then, after using various medical equipment to punch and drill holes for it, the epidermis and skull were pulled out, revealing the bright red flesh and hard brain bones that belonged to the creature. At this time, the doctor aimed his eyes at the deepest translucent brain meninges. After carefully holding the brain control chip that had been placed in the prepared disinfectant, the man inserted it straight into the wound and deep into the meninges. It took only a few seconds to implant it, and then other assistants who had been prepared began to inject wound adhesive glue into the wound and put the cut bones back. This wound adhesive glue was also exchanged by Killian in medical technology. It is a high-tech medical agent. Not only is the adhesive effect very strong, it can be effectively used for bone bonding, but it also has the functions of anti-inflammatory and sterilization and accelerating cell healing. And because the latter is also useful for bone cells, it was exchanged by Killian. Its effect can accelerate the healing speed of wounds that can only heal in dozens of days by several times or even dozens of times. And this operation was completely completed in just 1 hour. After the medical staff inside confirmed that the vital signs of the experimenter were stable and everything was normal, they stood. But for everyone in the laboratory, now is the real beginning. A group of researchers began to debug the data equipment they were responsible for. Elias Bain also took the initiative to come to the main control computer and began to input relevant instructions step by step. After more than 10 minutes of adjustment, Elias Bain pressed the confirmation button. On the big screen in front of everyone, after a long black screen, it finally started successfully. And in its screen, the memory fragments in the man's mind and the false memories they implanted were played. The whole picture was presented to them in the form of a video player by the brain control chip. Everyone began to get excited at this time. You know, editing the human brain and modifying the memory at will, this is something that only gods can do, and it was achieved by them, which is simply a miracle. Of course, for them, the success of the project means that they can receive a huge sum of money. You know, Pioneer Technology is famous for its generosity all over the world. The treatment of Pioneer Technology employees has even been criticized by other industries because it was too high. And after they completed this project, it can be expected that luxury cars, luxury houses, and young models and beauties will definitely not be a problem. Thank you for the 299 points of reward from 10 miles of peach blossoms. Thank you for your support. PS, maybe some readers' rewards are not visible to the author's backend, and the author doesn't know why. But thank you for your support. Thank you everyone, and follow me. Bosses. Chapter 54 Brain Control Chip. Boss, we succeeded. At this time, Elias Bane, who was standing by, also looked at Killian with joy and said, "You know, the rewards and benefits for senior researchers are much more than those for basic researchers, not to mention that if you want to move up in the future, you can only rely on projects. It can be said that every successful top-secret project is of great value." Although Killian's subordinates value these old people very much, as more and more scientific research teams are recruited, they gradually have the enthusiasm to compare with each other. After all, there are only so many employees in the company, and everyone wants the company's funds to be inclined to their own projects and the treatment of their own personnel. So every researcher tries his best when doing a project. Well, you did a good job. Next, improve the brain control chip as soon as possible. In the future, researchers of the company's first level and above projects will need to be implanted with chips. You should be prepared for this. After listening to Elias Bane, Killian patted the veteran who followed him in front of him, and then said to him earnestly, "Don't worry, boss. I have been prepared for this since the day I entered the industry. Not to mention that I have been following you for so long and watching the company grow step by step to its current size. Even though I have signed a confidentiality agreement, I still tremble in my heart about many technologies. Now that you have such a hand, I feel much more relieved." After hearing what Killian said, Elias Bane on the side spoke with a relieved look. To be honest, those who do scientific research actually know the situation they may face in the future from the very beginning of their career. If it is better, the project is not very high-end and you can meet your family, but the income is very meager. Then, if the project is high-end, you can't meet your family, but the income is very high. There is always a trade-off. Not to mention that his current salary is already several times or even 10 times ahead of his peers, and he is already very satisfied. The only problem is that he has been worried that as the project research becomes more and more in-depth, even meeting or to making phone calls will not be allowed in the future. After all, the technologies involved in these projects are too advanced. Even now, he couldn't imagine that humans could master the technology of invading biological memories and even freely editing them. That's good, don't worry, after this project is over, I will equip you with top security, and then you won't be as bored as you are now. Looking at the old subordinate who was very cooperative, Killian patted the other's shoulder with satisfaction and said, "After all, this person in front of him was also his old subordinate." If the other party disagreed, Killian would be in a bit of trouble. Then, after solving the psychological problems of his subordinates, Killian came to the control console on the side. He carefully picked up a chip that was placed in the middle, which was similar to a small centipede and only a millimeter thick, less than a centimeter. Even if there was a magnifying glass, you could clearly see the complex integrated circuit devices and exclusive protective films on the chip. And this is the brain control chip he exchanged from the movie upgrade. In the movie, as a carrier of artificial intelligence, it is just such a small chip. Unlike the original movie, where it was placed in the cervical spine, the improved version was placed in the brain by Killian, which makes it easier for artificial intelligence to control the body of the installer through the chip on the computer. Moreover, after Killian further optimized its performance, it became a smart chip with restrictions. When it comes to company secrets and some special circumstances, if the installer wants to speak out, the chip will automatically activate, forcibly control the host's brain, shut down the language and description functions of the brain, and issue a serious warning. If you want to continue, then start the destruction program, and this small chip will burst into high temperature. The effect is enough to roast the brain. If the person is kidnapped, the smart chip can also take over the person's body and escape after the system calculates. The advantage of this is that the whole process is controlled by robots, and the human body itself will not have any feeling. It can become a great man who combines fighting, boxing, human veins, etc. in an instant. And the most important thing is that it can update itself. As long as there is a signal, it can be connected to the internet for self-upgrade. Without a signal, it is a mobile big white, and the data stored in the database can be called out in time. The reason why Killian asked Dr. Otto to test a communication project in Miami first was for this step. Because as Killian unlocks more and more black technologies, more and more researchers will participate. In the early stage, he can screen whether others are loyal one by one, but what about in the later stage? It is not even certain whether he will always be in charge of the company. Therefore, He must establish a sufficiently secure anti-leakage system, and the brain control chip is one of them. At that time, he can supervise all senior employees of the company in time, and in the later stage, he can rely on the artificial intelligence given to Dabe or even exchanged again, so that the various secrets of Killian Company will once again usher in a copper wall and iron wall type of protection. Even if someone disconnects it from the internet on the spot, the smart chip can also enter the disconnection control and make independent judgments without any risk. And this is only the early stage. He will invest a lot of energy and financial resources to upgrade security in the future. At that time, whether in reality or in the spirit, it will all be marked with a mark of his pioneer technology company. Then, when Killian came to his senses again, he heard Elias Bane's cry, and then he put down the chip in his hand and went to the observation room next to him. The experimental subject woke up at this time. Frigo, the person involved, felt a unique smell of disinfectant in the hospital ward permeating the air. The pungent and unpleasant smell also choked his throat. Then he subconsciously opened his eyes, and the incandescent light on the pure white ceiling above his head made him feel particularly dazzling. Then he subconsciously turned his head and found that he was lying in the ward. Then Frigo wanted to sit up with the help of the bed. Now he felt dizzy in his mind as if someone had hit his head. Then he subconsciously wanted to touch his head. Just when his right hand touched his head, he remembered his previous surgery. And the strangest thing was that he found that the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that he was most concerned about when he came here seemed to have healed. Otherwise, according to his usual habit, he should have immediately grabbed the available weapon nearby. But now, as he thought about it, he even felt that the memory of the battlefield was almost blurred. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Experimental Subject. You're awake. How do you feel? At this time, before the man could continue thinking, Elias Bane came in with 2 research assistants, and then handed him a glass of water with a gentle face. Thank you. As for the feeling, it's better than ever before. After seeing the cup of water handed over by the other party, the man who had long felt thirsty also drank it quickly. After drinking it in one gulp, he felt better. Then he felt the state of his body and said excitedly to the familiar person in charge in front of him. It can be said that after coming down from the battlefield, what he regretted most was not dying there, so that he could even get a generous compensation for his wife and daughter. Instead of sleeping in the room like before, it was just that his wife wanted to come to him to play at night with her daughter in her arms, and then he was awakened and almost killed her with a pistol. You know, if the bullet was a little more off at that moment, it would have hit 2 lives. He still can't forget that scene, his wife's disbelief, and his daughter's crying. If he really did something wrong, he even felt that he would die and go to hell, and he couldn't atone for his sins. Fortunately, now, he finally has a second life. Can you still remember your previous memories? Can you remember some details? Try to recall the memories of the war. With one question after another, Elias Bane got the answer he wanted from the experimenter. It's perfect, believe me, observe for a few more days, and you can go back after the recovery period. After you go out this time, your family will usher in a brand new you that will not be troubled by the injuries of war. Then, after handing the testing equipment in his hand to the assistant beside him, Elias Bane said to the man in front of him with a smile. Thank you, if it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have been homeless now. After hearing the words of the research leader, the man stood up at this moment and said to the person in front of him with gratitude. Then, Elias Bane walked out of the room. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed since the last successful research on the brain control chip. During this time, Killian spent a lot of time purchasing a large number of production lines and high-tech instruments for Baymax. Each of these is also the world's top equipment. After he bought them, he placed them all on the research island in Miami. Below it, the research room has now reached the 50th floor underground. Killian cleared out all the previous construction companies and replaced them with Baymax, which had been transformed and removed the silicone skin. At this moment, there are nearly 100 robots here using various tools to dig down in an orderly manner. Here, each robot has its own area and content, and the efficiency of everything is many times faster than before. And with the more robots deployed here, the faster the underground construction will be. It won't be long before the beehive thousands of meters underground will be restored to this world by him. Sir, Miss Maya Hansen, I have applied to report to you at the company. At this time, with a prompt of Baymax in Killian's headphones, Killian put down the things here and took the elevator to the door of the laboratory. The island laboratory is now completely different. Not only has an iron wall been installed around the island, but there are also hundreds of Black Watch members wearing black armor patrolling back and forth on the island. And Killian's special car, under such a huge patrol force, drove towards the periphery of the island with a large number of armed escort convoys. Looking at Killian, who was surrounded by top-level weapons and strong equipment, a smile rose from the corner of his mouth. After confirming the cooperation with Ross, the first tyrant entered. After that, Killian's arms company application and the weapons of the personal guard were all green-lighted by Ross. And after that, Ross seemed to be worried about his own safety, and completely customized it for him according to the specifications of the US military general's travel. Even if Killian didn't want to be too high profile, Ross would have arranged an armed Hummer for Killian. At that time, Killian almost couldn't tell who was selling arms to whom. And he also promised that as long as Killian encountered danger anywhere, as long as he called him, he could arrange armed helicopters to come to support at any time, and there would be unconditional rescue by battalion-level units. And until the end of that day, Killian understood why the military had such a big move after Tony Stark was kidnapped and disappeared by terrorists in the original book. The military had been looking for several months. It was because the place was too big and the terrorists had an insider named Abadestan, so they couldn't find him. Otherwise, with the strength of the military, I'm afraid they would really turn over the whole of Afghanistan. After all, Tony is the father of their high-end weapons iteration and update. But Killian is also like this now, after Ross reported the actual combat data of the Tyrant to the military leaders. Not long after, it was like this now. On the way, 5 Hummers led the way, and the cars were all equipped with officially approved heavy firepower, plus the Black Watch, which was originally an elite force. You must know that for Black Watch, firepower is everything. As long as the firepower is enough, Alex can arrange it directly. Not to mention the security issues, there are also military helicopters to protect them. Looking at all this around him, Killian was pleased with his decision to make friends with the military. In this way, under the envious eyes of passers-by, Killian's motorcade also arrived at the company building in the Science and Technology Park. Maya Hansen also stood at the door with a smile on her face waiting for Killian. Even before Killian got out of the car, she took the initiative to trot over and open the door, smiling respectfully at Killian. Haha, I don't remember when I hired such a high-achieving secretary. Looking at Maya Hansen in front of him, Killian couldn't help but joked after getting out of the car. After all, Maya Hansen's appearance is indeed rare. If the boss needs it, I can actually be a secretary. As long as the boss doesn't fire me. After hearing Killian's words, Maya Hansen also joked. It's just a pity that Maya Hansen doesn't grow up in Killian's aesthetics, and the two of them only have a pure relationship between superiors and subordinates. Chapter 56 Overload. Okay, take me to see your results. I believe you called me all the way here, it shouldn't be just for me to listen to your compliments. Killian said as he walked straight inside. Then, under the leadership of Maya Hansen, the two came to the laboratory. As expected, in the laboratory, a familiar man was doing the corresponding test training under the guidance of the researcher. Mr. Killian. Thank you very much for giving me a second chance. What do you need me to do next? I can do it. When the other party saw Killian coming in, his eyes lit up in an instant, and then he trotted to the glass door in front of Killian and spoke excitedly. You know, before this, he never thought that he could return to normal life. Although more than a week has passed during this period, and several volunteers of the same period as him have died, he knows that if you want to get something, you must pay something. Instead of living in this world like a useless person and being bullied, it is better to take a gamble and bet on a better tomorrow for himself and his brothers and sisters. Fortunately, he was lucky. I remember you, 7, right? Very good, keep working with the researchers here to help them study this serum faster, so that in the future we can help more and more people like you who are suffering stand in this world again. Have a good rest, don't be stressed. After looking at 7 in front of the glass door, Killian smiled gently and said softly. The whole person was like a kind godfather. At least in Seven's eyes at this moment, Killian was no different from the bishop who saved the world. Yet, after hearing Killian's words, Seven nodded heavily. By the way, where are his brothers and sisters? Are they all settled? Looking at the man's appearance, Killian immediately asked Maya Hansen beside him. Don't worry, Booze. According to your request, we have arranged for them to have a comprehensive examination at the best hospital. We have already arranged a place for them to live, and the admission procedures have been prepared. If nothing goes wrong, they will be able to go to school normally next week. After hearing Killian's words, Maya Hansen smiled slightly and reported. After all, Seven was the first to come to the company to find her, and because Killian was not there at that time, she arranged the affairs of several people after reporting. So Maya Hansen can be said to be fully aware of the arrangements for Seven's brothers and sisters. Very good, remember to arrange everything properly, and don't let our own people feel disappointed. At this time, Killian nodded with satisfaction and then earnestly exhorted. Seeing this scene from inside the glass door, Seven couldn't help but reveal a burst of emotion. A kind of ambition to die for a confidant could not be dispelled in his heart for a long time. Okay, Seven, let's see your current ability. You know, the boss came to see you today. Maya Hansen, who was standing aside, saw that they had almost finished talking, so she took the initiative to stand up and said to Seven in front of her. Seven, who had reacted at this time, nodded vigorously, and then returned to the test room, and began to test step by step under the guidance of the researcher. Seven, let the boss see your true ability. Looking at Seven, who could easily punch several tons of force, and even in the intelligence test, he had greatly improved compared to before, Maya Hansen couldn't wait to speak at this moment. After hearing Maya Hansen's words, Seven nodded at this moment, and then walked to the side of the completely solid steel column, and then held his breath and concentrated. Then, Seven opened his eyes again, and the whole person began to emit a terrifying orange-yellow light from his body. Then in the blink of an eye, Seven's hands turned into a solid entity like magma, and he saw his hands placed on it. The completely solid steel column then began to melt into a pool of molten iron at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the liquid continued to flow down, even spreading to Seven's feet. The moment the two came into contact, a sizzling sound like the sound of roasting meat dripping with oil was heard. However, these were just bearable pains for Seven now. After gritting his teeth and not worrying about the problem on his feet, he once again increased the temperature in his hands and began to melt all the remaining steel columns into molten iron with all his strength. On the other side, at this moment in the observation room outside, the monitoring device that was observing Seven's body in real time also issued a beeping alarm. Seven, that's enough, you can stop. You need to cool down now. At this time, after looking at Seven in front of him whose body temperature was close to the critical value, Maya Hansen on the side also changed her face, and then came to the microphone and spoke to Seven inside. However, Seven could no longer listen to Maya Hansen's words at this time, and gritted his teeth to continue to maintain the current temperature output. For him, he had waited so long for his savior to come, and he wanted to show off to prove that the other party's previous investment in him was not wrong. How could he give up so easily at the critical moment? Start the freezing program. Looking at Seven, who could no longer listen, Maya Hansen said to the researcher beside her anxiously. Not to mention that the experimental equipment inside was priceless, just a boss was still here, and if she saw the failed experiment, she would feel ashamed. No, wait and see. At this moment, Killian stopped them. Then he looked inside quietly, and Maya Hansen, who was about to say something, moved her throat but did not speak, and then looked inside. At this moment, the orange-red light on Seven's body became even brighter than before. And from his constant gritting of teeth and ferocious eyes, it can be seen that he must be experiencing great pain in his body now. And just as they guessed, after experiencing high-intensity continuous output, the desperate virus in Seven's body has tacitly accepted that his body has undergone initial strengthening, and now, for the virus, since the host has accepted its entry, it will lead the host to climax. Chapter 57 Breakthrough in the Fourth Stage of Theory. Then, under the influence of the desperate virus, each of the viruses in Seven's body began to vibrate at a very fast speed, and began to continuously split itself, then devour, and then become a powerful independent individual. In this case, the temperature in Seven's body is now completely out of his control, and the energy in his body is growing at an extremely terrifying rate. Now either his body adapts to the desperate virus that has evolved again, or the desperate virus takes him to the climax and blooms the last fireworks of this world. Then, with a continuous transformation of the desperate virus in Seven's body, the orange-red light on Seven's body gradually began to become like the color of the sun. Just when the two Black Watch soldiers next to Killian began to stand in front of him and prepare to resist the upcoming dazzling explosion light curtain. After a roar from Seven, the dazzling light that had begun to scatter was retracted again. After the next second, Seven returned to his original state panting, and his whole person smiled at Killian, indicating that he lived up to everyone's expectations, and then fell straight down. At this time, the researchers who had already evacuated the laboratory hurriedly opened the room, ran in, and took Seven, who was severely burned all over his body, into the nutrient solution tank not far away. For the desperate virus modifiers, as long as there is enough nutrient solution, no matter how serious the injury is, they can recover quickly, and there is a constant temperature setting inside, so even the high temperature can be quickly controlled. What's his condition now? After watching Seven being carried to the nutrient solution tank not far away, Killian immediately asked Maya Hansen beside him. He has made a breakthrough. I divide the ultimate transformation, which is now the Extremis virus, into 4 stages. The first stage is the body transformation. After the Extremis virus enters the brain, it calculates the brain, and then after confirming the defects in the body, it will comprehensively supplement and strengthen the host's physical defects and body cells. Moreover, as long as the heart is not fatally injured, it can recover. The energy of the Extremis virus in the body will also increase day by day, and the high temperature ability can be used to a small extent. However, it is necessary to take stabilizers regularly to cool down, otherwise it will explode due to the high energy of the Extremis virus in the body. The second stage is to complete the second transformation after the body adapts to the rhythm of high-intensity energy surge. Now it can control the power of fire. The body will be able to freely release thousands of degrees of high temperature and speed up the body's recovery. However, the body will be in danger of a small explosion. As long as the heart does not stop beating, it can still be resurrected. The third stage is comprehensive strengthening. The flame can accumulate from the body and then gush out. It will not die from the explosion and has a chance to be completely resurrected. As for the fourth stage, according to theoretical calculations, as long as it is combined with relevant optimizations, in theory, it can achieve immortality. And Seven is now in the second stage. The Extremis virus has strengthened him in all aspects, and he is also very strong. Both his willpower and his body's adaptation to the Extremis virus are perfectly matched, and the sum of the two even reaches 90%. In theory, he has just received the injection, and his body has only adapted to the primary transformation of the Extremis virus not long ago. He should not be able to withstand the second virus self-enhancement. But in fact, it is so. He seems to have an extremely strong belief in survival, coupled with his already strong physical fitness. All of this combined has allowed his body to evolve. To be honest, he seems to be born for the Extremis virus. After hearing Killian's words, Maya Hansen also answered immediately. To be honest, at that moment, he was ready to stop directly. As long as the low temperature was released and the liquid nitrogen freezing began, Seven could directly cool down to the safe position. But in that case, Seven would not be able to break through to the second stage. Now she admires Killian very much, admires his vision and trust. After all, the explosion of the Extremis virus modifier is very powerful. Even though there is a high-strength explosion-proof glass in front of them, to be honest, she wanted to run at the first moment. Because the explosion power of the Extremis virus is based on the experimenter, the stronger the experimenter, the greater the power, and Seven is beyond doubt. Did you just say the fourth stage? After hearing Maya Hansen's words, Killian couldn't help but ask curiously. He knew about the third stage. In the original book, Killian could spit fire freely, and from the huge power of the Mark 42 armor, he could also be reborn from the ashes, which was enough to show how powerful it was. Killian was killed by Pepper's palm cannon later. It was probably because the rebirth brought by the Extremis virus to the host was not unlimited. One is that it takes time to recover, and the second is that it requires energy. What makes Killian curious is the fourth stage. If Maya Hansen is not wrong, then the potential of the Extremis virus may be even greater. The fourth stage is my biggest theoretical speculation about the Extremis virus. You know, the evolution of organisms can evolve according to changes in the environment, and it is endless. As long as the Extremis virus can evolve to the 4th stage, then humans can truly get rid of the troubles of disease and pain and life forever. It's just a pity that the 4th stage requires too much data and it's too huge. If the 3rd stage is to build a building, then the 4th stage is to build a planet. Even if I have Dabe to help deduce it now, I still can't find the key to the right door. So until now, the 4th stage is only in theory. After hearing Killian's words, Maya Hansen spoke very actively at this time. For a researcher, the most important thing is to draw pi, especially a pi that the boss can believe in. Only in this way can there be a steady stream of funds to invest, and she is right. As long as the Extremis virus continues to evolve, it will definitely reach the point she said. From this point of view alone, she thinks what she said is correct. Yes, can it be mass-produced now? Killian smiled non-committally at Maya Hansen's promise, then looked at Seven, who had been placed in the nutrition cabin not far away, and spoke. To be honest, the potential of the Extremis virus is unquestionable. In the early and late stages of the Marvel Universe, its ability can even replace the Super Soldier Serum. Chapter 58 Research Progress Report. The only flaw is that it is prone to explosion. Once this shortcoming is made up, it will be a unique Super Soldier Serum. And Killian is very greedy for Maya Hansen's 4th stage. Okay, but it depends on the physique of the experimenter. So far, only Seven is the most suitable for the Extremis virus. Although others can successfully adapt to the Extremis virus, they are not as good as him in development or strengthening. And it is easy to explode. I need to make deep edits in the DNA sequence. After listening to Killian's words, Maya Hansen also reported. God knows how many creatures exploded in the laboratory during this period of time, but fortunately, among the few human experimenters, they were also tested for compatibility with the Extremis virus and succeeded. It can be regarded as a blessing in disguise. No need to go through so much trouble. Extract his DNA and start cloning. After confirming that his DNA can be highly adapted, start full cloning. Then you can communicate with Samuel, the person in charge of the T-Virus project. I want to see the brand new Extremis Tyrant. You should be familiar with the T-Virus, right? After listening to Maya Hansen's words, Killian also waved his hand and said to her beside him. Editing them one by one would not delay them. Since there are high adapters with results, they can be cloned directly. Moreover, since Seven's body cells are so good and can perfectly adapt to the Extremis virus, Killian has reason to believe that he can definitely adapt to the Tyrant project like the Russian soldiers who were the prototypes of the Tyrant in Resident Evil. Of course, according to your meaning, boss, we have been exchanging information about the virus project during this period. It can be said that we have drawn a lot of inspiration from each other. Maya Hansen admired Killian. She originally thought that her Extremis virus project was already very forward-looking. Unexpectedly, the other party actually had a project like the T-Virus, an ultimate killer. During the visit and the exchange of project information, she also further understood the power of the T-Virus. It can be said that its potential is even greater than her Extremis virus. If she had not led the development of the Extremis virus, she would have wanted to recommend herself to be in charge of the T-Virus project. There was no way. The two projects were very similar, and in terms of biological recovery and longevity, Maya Hansen felt that the T-Virus was more practical than her Extremis virus. The only thing that made her feel fortunate was that the enhancer of her Extremis virus had superpowers that the Tyrant developed by the T-Virus did not have. Very good, you have to communicate with each other and cooperate more, okay? You are all senior researchers of the company now. I don't care whether you know too much, as long as you work hard for the company. After Killian finished speaking with satisfaction to Maya Hansen's answer, he walked out. Now the experiments of the T-Virus and the Extremis virus have made great breakthroughs, and the T-Virus has also begun to make a profit for him. Looking at the rising score from the Tyrant on the system, Killian couldn't help but smile playfully. Otherwise, why is it said that the free ones are the most expensive? With Killian's promise to provide the Tyrant for experiments for free, the military couldn't help but put it into the battlefield. Although it is still restrained now and is only used for some remote anti-terrorism missions, Killian believes that as the Tyrant's performance becomes better and better, the military will sooner or later put it into the front battlefield. By then, the reputation points brought by the T-Virus will even exceed that of Baymax. After all, the reputation created on the battlefield is much stronger than in life. In the laboratory, watching Killian leave, Maya Hansen couldn't help but touch the place on her head where the hair was obviously sparse. The other party is not worried about them colluding to know too much now, that is too confident in them. After all, if she has such a black technology, she will also trust her subordinates. After silently putting her hand down, she sighed, and then she was revived with full blood and devoted her passion to the research work. After all, if you ignore that little restriction, their current treatment is much better than before. When the project is not tight, they can travel to other places at will. And the company reimburses all travel expenses. Not to mention the personal bodyguard protection and the countless salary and bonuses now. It can be said that she is now completely an urban white-collar worker. But she is not interested in those things. After playing for a day or two, she returned to the laboratory. Instead of facing those colorful clothes, she would rather face the DNA sequence. The feeling of exploring and editing by herself is simply too good. At the same time, on the other side, Killian, who had returned to the company, also called several important subordinates to the conference room. "Okay, everyone, report, how is the situation?" After seeing everyone was present, Killian asked. "Let me go first, boss. The news company we built, its subsidiary website Pioneer Browser has now been officially put into use. After the initial return visit, the user feedback is good and there will be no problems. At the same time, the instant messaging product Little Bluebird has also been put into use, and the number of users is also steadily increasing." At this time, a middle-aged man with glasses, Barry Bernard, who was not far away, took the initiative to report after hearing Killian's words. "Well, the social sector in this aspect of the internet is still blank. I will approve a sum of money for you, and your main task is to attract new customers and keep them, understand? For the browser and the news company, these are what Killian wants to fight for. Not only must he flourish in people's livelihood and military, but he must also hold a dominant power of public opinion on the internet tightly in his hands. Moreover, this era is just when major news colleagues only focus on physical newspapers, and no one else has come to share this cake. So Killian has to eat it up before they react. Boss, we have already developed the touch-sensitive holographic projection technology, and the production line has been assembled, and it can be put into use on a large scale at any time." On the other side, one of Killian's former research assistants also stood up and reported. Because the touch-sensitive holographic projection technology itself is only worth 1,000 reputation points, but it also has extremely important strategic value for various industries, so Killian also exchanged it for his subordinates to study. Chapter 59 Press Conference. Boss, 4G network and smartphone are also completed. Here is the finished product. Please take a look. At this time, Dr. Otto also started to report after several people finished their reports. After handing the phone to Killian, Killian also began to study at 32G running memory plus 1T memory, in addition to its own satellite communication, disaster warning, emergency call and holographic projection probe. It can be said that such a small mobile phone is already the pinnacle of technology in the next 30 years. Of course, the premise is that Tony does not run into the mobile phone industry like crazy to stir up trouble. When Killian was operating, everyone present looked at the sci-fi appearance and powerful functions of the mobile phone, and their eyes could not help but reveal a touch of envy. You know, they are still using flip phones or skateboard phones now, and the brand new touchscreen mobile phone like the one in Killian's hand, let alone seeing it, has never been heard of before. And those functions, each of them is enough to support a small company. Very good, Otto, you did a great job, far beyond my expectations. After playing with the various functions of the phone, Killian looked at Dr. Otto in front of him and said with satisfaction. To be honest, he just wanted the other party to simply reproduce an Apple 15 level smartphone for him. After all, he had given him all kinds of technologies, and Dr. Otto only needed to choose the best combination. But what Killian didn't expect was that the other party could even integrate a holographic projection function that his company was developing. All of this was beyond his expectations. At this moment, Killian once again had a deep understanding of the saying that talent is the driving force of all development. This time, everyone present will receive an additional bonus of 30 million for each project, which will be distributed by the person in charge. Oh, by the way, Otto, when the time comes, you will produce 100 of these phones first, and it will be regarded as an internal reward for the project personnel present. After silently putting Otto's phone in his pocket, Killian said to everyone with a smile on his face. Boss, You are simply God. After hearing Killian's words, everyone couldn't help but speak up. Okay, next I need you to maintain the current situation. Barry Bernard, we will start the product launch of this conference in Miami next Wednesday. You will be responsible for publicity and venue layout. Lisa will be in charge of hosting it then. After listening to everyone's compliments, Killian continued to speak seriously. Boss, me. However, after hearing that Killian actually appointed her, Lisa herself couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. She originally thought that her task was to be responsible for the sales of this product, but she didn't expect that the boss would also give her the matter of the launch conference. You know, that is the responsibility of the president. Well, and since you are all here, from today on, Lisa will be the company's VP, responsible for the company's external and sales affairs. The official notice will be issued by the Human Resources Department after the meeting. Looking at Lisa, who is stunned in front of him, Killian nodded and said with certainty. After Killian finished speaking, everyone present also applauded. As a newcomer, Dr. Otto naturally had nothing to say, and no one else knew him. The other two were old employees who had come with Killian, and their promotion levels were no slower than Lisa's. Not to mention that when Lisa was Killian's secretary at the beginning, she often communicated with him, and they had a good impression of each other. And having a person who knows you well and has good character as your boss is much better than the boss going out to find some unknown glamorous stuff to be the vice president. So the two of them started to congratulate Lisa very cooperatively. After seeing the scene, Killian nodded, and walked out after announcing the adjournment of the meeting. And in the next few days, Pioneer Technologies Product Launch Conference was also approved by Killian. With the cooperation and support of the company's operations department and other bigwigs, it began to proceed in an orderly manner. With only one day, a piece of news was completely detonated on the internet. Pioneer Technology will hold the product pre-launch conference in a week, and at that time, the world's leading smartphones, touch-sensitive holographic projections and 4G signals will be launched. At this time, various industries also received invitations to the press conference. Such a piece of news, in this era when the internet has just started, is like throwing an atomic bomb into the water, which is extremely shocking. Moreover, major American companies and government agencies have also forwarded it on the internet one after another. With the blessing of this butterfly effect, it can be said that it is now known to the entire network. For a time, news about the press conference of Pioneer Technology Company was endless, and every media was frantically expressing its own opinions, trying to gain enough popularity before this wave of carnival came. Shucked, the epoch-making LCD mobile phone is about to be launched. Is it a commercial gimmick or is it true? Touchscreen mobile phone, unprecedented innovation and subversion. Is it the arrival of the future era or a flash in the pan? Science fiction movies have entered reality, and the controllable holographic projection technology will subvert your cognition. In 3 minutes, take you to understand the development history of Pioneer Technology Company. The nightmare of mobile phone merchants, the arrival of 4G signals. Pioneer Technology began to enter the communications industry. Pioneer Technology Company, a dark horse that appeared out of nowhere, can it offer us technology that leads the future technology craze like DAB? Pioneer Technology Company will start formal mobile phone reservations on the internet and offline stores. Pioneer Technology is recruiting agents in the mobile phone industry. At this moment, the front page headlines of the entire portal website are almost completely dominated by these topics. And the most important one that many businessmen are paying attention to is the reservation model that Killian has come up with. You must know that in this era, people still stay at the concept of handing over money and exchanging hands. And Killian's Pioneer Technology suddenly came up with a pre-sale marketing model. At this moment, many businessmen are eagerly waiting to see their jokes. After all, there have never been such stupid people since ancient times. To put it bluntly, if there are more people who buy by then, there will be millions and tens of millions of people, and each person will pay thousands of dollars. Wouldn't it be possible to directly take away hundreds of billions of dollars and run away? Faced with such a huge amount of money, any normal person can imagine it, so at this moment, everyone said to Pioneer Technology that it was just a young man who didn't know the cruelty of the business world. Chapter 60 Apple's response. Meanwhile, in Cupertino, California, Apple Incorporated. At this moment, Steve Jobs, the president of Apple, was quietly watching the sudden increase in hot searches on the computer screen. And there were many people discussing each hot search. Especially the pictures and discussions about mobile phones, Every comment seemed to hit his heart. And on the sofa not far in front of him, the backbone members of the company were sitting now. At this time, with Pioneer Technology taking the lead in firing the first shot in the mobile phone industry, the senior executives of Apple could not sit still. What do you think about this matter? Is there any meaning to this thing? At this moment, Jobs looked up at the R&D director and the scientific research team in front of him, and asked while knocking on the finished electronic equipment just taken out of the laboratory in his hand. Looking at Jobs knocking on the electronic product in his hand, the head of the R&D department at this moment was distressed. You know, even so, this is the first music player they have developed. The only difference between the two is that if the gimmicks released by Pioneer Technology are all true, then there is really no comparison between the two. It's hard to say, sir. The new touchscreen phone, I'm sorry, it all sounds incredible. It's like I woke up from a nap, and the next day someone told me that we have entered the interstellar age. Unless he has alien technology, I'm sorry, it's all unbelievable. At this time, the head of the research team was the first to speak. After all, this is Zhutian Black Technology 4G communication technology, coupled with the incredible operating screen without any buttons. All of this is like something out of a science fiction movie. To be honest, I agree with Vital's point of view. If any of these technologies were released at random, I might believe it. But if they are all put together in a small mobile phone, I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, the technical difficulty of these technologies is at least decades ahead of the world's technology, so this is unlikely. Maybe, this may be a fundraising method used by Pioneer Technology. They want to raise funds in advance and run away? After all, I can write a lot of such propaganda words with my eyes closed. I agree. It's not like this has never happened before. By the way, is there really anyone willing to pay first? Believe me, if I do this, even my grandmother will crawl out of the grave and slap me. As everyone answered one by one, Jobs realized that no one believed it. In fact, he didn't want to believe it either. After all, the music player they just invested hundreds of millions of dollars to develop only has 5G of memory. And the running memory advertised by others for a mobile phone is even more than theirs. This is simply using anti-aircraft guns to hit mosquitoes. A country has already developed technology to the interstellar age, while they are still hitting weapons with stones. However, even if he didn't believe it, Jobs still silently retracted his gaze when he saw the private health consultant Dabe placed downstairs for the safety of employees. Even this kind of black technology robot can be produced and sold on a large scale, and it seems that it doesn't care if others steal and crack it. In other words, a small mobile phone doesn't seem so shocking. Now our question is, what should we do next? Should we give up the transformation and focus on making our computers, or continue to do it and compete with Pioneer Technology? Then after retracting his gaze, Jobs looked at the people in front of him and spoke. To be honest, their computers are well made, and even many government departments and enterprises purchase their computers. With their continuous marketing and publicity, the terms such as high-end, atmospheric, upscale, reliable, safe and meaningful have gradually been firmly attached to their computers. And it is because they have already established a firm foothold in the computer industry that they want to enter the audio equipment, that is, MP3, and their next idea is to decide whether to fully enter the mobile phone industry based on feedback. But now all this has just begun, and the monster Pioneer Technology has jumped out and strangled everything in the cradle. Jobs, I think that although Pioneer Technology may say that all of this is fake, but if it is true, then unless we can withstand the continuous investment of profits into production and research and development in the next 20 years, we will have a chance to catch up with the products they are releasing now. We are indeed too weak now. At this time, a manager also spoke out his thoughts. Although they are the leaders of the new technology industry, they are only worth tens of billions of dollars now, which is too far from the flagship company like Pioneer Technology, which has a valuation of hundreds of billions of dollars. Not to mention the insurmountable gap in technology itself, they can't beat them in terms of burning money and investment. The only way to break the deadlock is to find another way and switch to other popular projects. How about we try to cooperate with Pioneer Technology and become their agent? At this time, a publicity director on the side hesitated and put forward his own opinion. Then, after seeing everyone looking at him with puzzled expressions, the man immediately said, "Since from the current information, it is not difficult to see that the other party's promotion this time is very likely to be true, and our products also collide with theirs. Then why don't we directly switch to agency sales? You know, since the other party's mobile phone has such powerful functions as advertised, it will definitely take the high-end route, which is the same route as our computer products. In this case, the cooperation between our two companies can be said to be a win-win situation. First, we have existing channels. Almost all users who buy our computers can completely buy their mobile phones, and we as a channel dealer can also sell them perfectly. Second, if we get the agency rights, we can observe their smartphones up close and accumulate rich experience for us if we want to go down this road in the future. It can be said that there is already a giant ahead of us, and now we are just a toddler. And what we have to do is to grow as much as possible during this period of time and learn from the giant's knowledge. After the man spoke, everyone present couldn't help but fall into deep thought. After all, the technological gap between the two was too big. Not to mention that their company was just starting out. Even if it wasn't, according to the current situation, if they really wanted to clash head-on, they would only end up dead. Chapter 61 Holographic Projection. I think this plan is not feasible. You know, our company has always been advocating an independent and high-end route since its establishment. If we become an agent now, I am afraid that some current users will have a bad impression of us. At this time, another senior executive also spoke up. Okay, let's leave it at that. I have an idea. I believe that this may be an opportunity for us. At this moment, Jobs said with a firm look. After hearing what the boss said, the management did not continue to talk, but directly adjourned the meeting. Similar situations are also happening in all walks of life across the country. After all, now that the computer market is saturated, mobile phones are the next chess piece that every manufacturer wants to enter, or the chess piece that has already entered. Now that pioneer technology has intervened, it has also caused many people to wait and see, hesitate, and hesitate. I don't know whether to continue to make their own products, or give up the existing ones and become an agent with peace of mind. At the same time, with the passage of time, Pioneer Technology's second press conference is also proceeding in an orderly manner, and the day of the press conference has arrived in a flash. Wednesday. With the wind and the sun slowly spreads to the earth. At this moment, in a square in Miami, countless media and audiences have gathered here, just to witness the miracle of the first press conference again. Because this time, the promotion of Pioneer Technology not only turns the mobile phone into a buttonless mobile phone that has never been seen before, but also has 3D projection technology that only exists in science fiction. Therefore, countless people traveled thousands of miles across cities to come to Miami. Even because of this press conference of Pioneer Technology, the number of local foreign tourists has increased significantly, and even the local GDP this year can be doubled. This made Senator Kennedy, who is from Florida, and the governor couldn't help but smile. On the other side, with the anticipation of all the media, along with the official start of the press conference, everyone was a little disappointed this time, because this time the organizers' speakers did not have President Killian's appearance again. Instead, a tall and charming female vice president was replaced. As the spotlights came on, in the surprised eyes of everyone, Lisa walked out in a gorgeous dress. At this moment, in the audience in front of her were dozens of companies and news media from related industries, and outside the venue were tens of thousands of tourists who came to watch. At this moment, even Lisa, who had experienced many battles, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Welcome to the elites from all walks of life, corporate representatives, news media reporters and fans who support our Pioneer Technology. My name is Lisa, and I am the main business person in charge of external publicity for Pioneer Technology and also the vice president. Here, I would like to thank our chairman, Mr. Killian, for giving me such an opportunity to represent the entire Pioneer Technology and stand up to face the arrival of all friends, and thank you for your trust in us, and for coming thousands of miles to personally attend our first Pioneer Technology press conference. After more than a month of training in the sales department, she now uses a crisp voice, clear and orderly, and speaks to every audience in front with a smile. In this press conference, we will introduce the main content and related functions of our big product. Secondly, this time we want to thank everyone for coming to the scene to support our Pioneer Technology. So we decided to give everyone who came to the scene a benefit, that is, our Pioneer Technology company will provide 10,000 Pioneer-level smartphones in stock, and sell them at a 20% discount. Believe me, its price will definitely be much lower than any other channel, and it will also make you feel that it is worth the money. As Lisa finished talking about the benefits, The people present couldn't help but usher in a climax of cheers. You know, in addition to wanting to watch the Pioneer Technology press conference, they came to the scene to buy a spot mobile phone from Pioneer Technology Company, and now there is a 20% discount, which is simply a good benefit. Well, I won't say anything more, now I will introduce our first product. After she finished speaking with a smile, she saw Lisa clapping her hands. Everyone instantly felt that the surrounding scenery suddenly changed, and suddenly, everyone came to the Sky City from the original square. The surrounding area was full of ancient and magnificent buildings. Houses that only existed in myths appeared in front of everyone for the first time. And even people at the edge of the square could see the clouds flowing with the wind at the edge of the Sky City, and the real land under their feet. At this moment, the sudden change made people in the whole venue agitated. As you can see, you are now in the environment of the Sky City constructed by the 3D holographic projection, the first product of our Pioneer Technology Company at this conference. Although you are now in the Sky City, you are still on the original ground, so please don't panic. You can try to slowly feel these pictures and scenes. But then Lisa's voice sounded, and everyone quieted down. Wow. It's true. It's amazing. I feel like my feet are still on the ground, but my eyes tell me that I'm already in the sky. Oh my god, is this the legendary city in the sky? It's so beautiful. Oh my god, it would be great if I could live here. With Lisa's guidance, the people at the scene began to feel the scene brought to them by the 3D holographic projection. At this moment, everyone was observing everything around them with their naked eyes, wanting to see carefully what the differences and loopholes were. But as they thought, it was too perfect. If they could not touch it, they would even feel that there really appeared in the sky. And the scene was also broadcasted to all parts of the world by the live broadcast camera on the scene. After seeing this scene, every audience member couldn't help but be amazed and hate themselves for not making up their minds to watch it on the spot earlier. Missed such an opportunity to watch the legendary building up close. Next is the Parthenon, Mount Olympus, the Garden of Eden, the fairy tale world. At this moment, as one mythological scene after another appeared, everyone felt a satisfaction and sublimation in their hearts and spirits that they had never experienced before. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62: Shocking Technology. Those legendary scenic spots and places were completely restored in front of them. This moment lasted a long time, but it was also very short. Even after the 3D holographic projection on the scene was turned off for a long time, everyone still couldn't get rid of the unprecedented shock brought by the holographic projection. I believe that everyone has a very intuitive understanding of our 3D holographic projection equipment at this moment. In the future, whether our doctors have a deeper research and discovery of human anatomy, or our designers can design the decoration effect that customers want more intuitively, or architects. Moreover, it also has customized desktop models and home models, etc. It can be directly connected to the internet, that is, it is equivalent to a computer, a brand new smart platform. With it, you can stand, sit or even lie down to work, chat with people, go to the movies, play games. As Lisa introduced various scenes, human organ diagrams, and various preoperative application treatments and case injury analysis appeared in the air beside the main podium. There are also architectural decoration styles and architectural designs. At this moment, the whole scene was silent from beginning to end. Until all the pictures were introduced, thunderous applause broke out in the venue. Not to mention the next few products, 3D holographic projection alone is a revolutionary existence for many industries. Lisa still maintained a professional smile for the reactions on the scene. This reaction was naturally within her expectations. You know, before getting this video, she was no less shocked than them. So we have seen the effect, what about the price? This is the focus of today. 3D holographic projection is composed of tiny cubic devices. According to the use area and the on-site environment, a small cube like the one in my hand can be used in an environment of 50 square meters. And the price is $5,000 per piece. 1-year replacement package, 3-year warranty. For users who choose our pioneering technology, we completely solve the worries. And a one-time purchase of $100,000 will enjoy customized exclusive scene services, whether you want the Louvre, the Golden City, the Palace or the Temple. it can be satisfied. As Lisa briefly introduced the 3D holographic projection product and its selling price and benefits. At this moment, the number of viewers of the global broadcast began to increase, and more people were introduced by friends or promoted. After seeing the news on TV, they were even more shocked. No one would have thought that such a sophisticated thing would only cost a few $1,000s. You know, it can completely go the high-end route, but even so, it will be in short supply, and countless industries and companies will buy it as if they were giving money. And Pioneer Technology actually set it at this price. The president of Apple and several executives who accompanied him at the scene were also shocked by all this. They might be able to imagine that 3D holographic projection can be displayed, but what they didn't expect was that the so-called 3D holographic projection was actually made by a small cube like Lisa's hand, which was not even as big as the Rubik's Cube. At this moment, they found that Pioneer Technology Company was not over-promoting in its external publicity, but was clearly too low-key. It only showed the tip of the iceberg of the equipment in front of them. This is simply too shocking. Such a huge data flow, and all devices must be synchronized to maintain it without frame drops. What kind of computing power and signal transmission are needed to achieve this? After seeing the small cube that Lisa showed to everyone, the head of Apple Research couldn't help but muttered in amazement. You know, if you want to restore the real world 100%, you can do it, but you need extremely large memory and chip processing to do it. And to achieve the current level, it is conservatively estimated that several terabytes or even tens of terabytes of memory are needed. If this is true, doesn't it mean the entourage on the other side, after seeing that Pioneer Technology actually made a 3D holographic projection, suddenly remembered something and said, yes. After hearing his words, Jobs nodded, took a deep breath, and said heavily. At this moment, such thoughts were generated in all the presidents at the scene and those who were not at the scene for various reasons. And, in order to thank the representatives and fans of major companies present for their visit and support. In order to ensure the smooth progress of our press conference, all the people present this time will be registered by Pioneer Technology and will become our most loyal VIP customers and partners in the future. Related pre-sales and cooperation will give priority to you and your representative companies. All this is just to thank everyone for their support to Pioneer Technology. If Lisa's words before just shocked everyone, then now those who didn't come will regret it, and those who came will be so happy. Especially Jobs and others, although they are now mainly engaged in the computer industry and don't need holographic projection. But Lisa's words basically mean that if there are computer equipment or computer chips in the future, they will be sold in the same way. If they want to do it, they will give priority to them. They don't doubt the credibility of Lisa's words, because a company, especially a large company that wants to become bigger and stronger, will pay special attention to the promises made to the public. The words partners and VIP are the most important. Even if Pioneer Technology has any new products or product upgrades in the future, they will consider these partners first, not others. This makes their trip worth the price. At this moment, they no longer consider what brand to do. Damn it, being a good supplier partner, isn't it good? Who would have a hard time with green US dollars? Okay, that's all about the introduction of 3D holographic projection. Next, I will show you our second pioneering technology product, the pioneering full touchscreen smartphone. Then, as Lisa's voice fell, everyone saw Lisa projecting the protagonist of this time, the pioneering smartphone, which was completely different from other existing keypad phones in appearance. The unparalleled metallic texture, the beautiful and technological appearance, and the smooth operation when it started up, all brought a unique sense to the people on the scene. Chapter 63 Pioneer Cell Phone. As the world's first new smartphone, it is equipped with an octa-core processor and a new generation of AI Pioneer engine. The operating system is also the latest Pioneer operating system developed by our Pioneer Technology. The body itself has 512/1G/2G/4G built-in storage and can be selected, which fully meets the various uses of the public and enterprises. Coupled with 3 cameras including ultra-high pixel ultra-focus, ultra-wide-angle, and periscope telephoto, you can perfectly share the real scenery with friends around the world. The body itself is not only waterproof and shockproof, but also has a high-capacity battery that can be charged for 1 hour and standby for 3 days. And, as Lisa practiced a mobile phone and then showed it to everyone with 3D holographic projection, everyone was shocked. Oh my god, they have several terabytes of memory, are you kidding me? Can they really make it? I'm only using a memory card of several tens of megabytes. What does that 8-core processor mean? Is it amazing? Fuck. I said that Pioneer Technology is definitely an alien technology company. Can any of these be researched by normal humans? Pioneer Technology has only been established for a few years, right? Those old high-tech companies are not as amazing as it is. It's too scary. For a while, with Lisa's continuous explanation of the functions of the mobile phone and the on-site function demonstration, the audience at the scene and in front of the TV could not sit still, and everyone was discussing fiercely. It can be said that in just 1 hour today, the shock they received was simply something they would never encounter in their lifetime. I'm sure everyone is familiar with mobile phones. We need them to make calls, send messages, share our lives, search for information online, and so on. Perhaps everyone's definition of it is just the above, but believe me, Pioneer mobile phones will change your perception of it. In the future, we will be committed to building a large virtual mall that integrates life, medical care, and business. It will allow you to choose new products without leaving your home, and you can also use the built-in projection function to select each product for you. And it also prepares disaster warnings for everyone. It will provide you with accurate forecasts for various natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and typhoons through relevant technologies. And it also prepares functions such as danger alarms and satellite phone alarms to ensure that no matter what the situation is, as long as you encounter danger, you can contact the outside world for help in time. After Lisa introduced the functions of the mobile phone and even the few small games that came with the mobile phone, the whole scene was boiling again. After a few warm-up words about the situation on the scene, under the leadership of Lisa, the press conference venue has already ushered in the third product, or the third technology, the introduction of 4G network signals. At this moment, the real electronic product network giants also looked solemn, and then looked up with heavy faces. You know, for them, the network signal can be said to be their lifeline. They cannot buy products from Pioneer Technology. But if the 4G network is real, then they cannot not use it. Otherwise, your company's network speed is slow, and other companies' network speed is fast, so naturally they will not buy things from you. And among the people present, the representative of Qualcomm in the United States has the heaviest face, and it has even become dark to a certain extent. Because now basically all companies are using their 2G network, and they have also relied on the patent fees of the 2G network to reach billions of dollars in annual income. It can be said that as long as the 2G network is still in use, then those mobile phone merchants using the 2G network must pay them 5% of the patent fee of 65% of the price of the mobile phone for every mobile phone sold. For a mobile phone of 3,000 yuan, they can collect 150 yuan in patent fees. Originally, they have already developed 3G and are preparing to announce it to the public. Unexpectedly, Pioneer Technology skipped 3G and announced that it had developed the 4G network. This was a slap in the face, so their company sent him to investigate the enemy, hoping that everything was just a propaganda of Pioneer Technology. And now, looking at the familiar 3D holographic projection lighting up again, and the introduction and content of the 4G network, the man's heart sank again. He knew that unless their company started to skip 4G and start developing 5G now, they would not have any advantages. No, maybe they should skip 5G and develop 6G directly. After all, when their company released 2G, they already had a prototype of the 3G network. And now, he didn't believe that Pioneer Technology had no research on 5G. As I said before, the future belongs to 4G and has arrived. When the time comes, you can easily watch the scenery videos uploaded by users from all over the world without leaving your home, and each video of several hundred megabytes can be downloaded in just a few seconds and watched online. Games, videos, movies, program research, software development, etc. These will no longer be dreams with the help of the high efficiency and low latency of the 4G network. With the development of 4G, the era of the Internet of Everything is coming, and everything will be connected to the Internet in the future. Let's look forward to it. As Lisa's voice fell, waves of applause rang out again at the scene. Everyone felt the extremely sci-fi future coming and the scenes prepared in advance, using the 3D virtual projection. Unmanned driving, remote control, video, remote surgery and other high-tech operations were all depicted. Everyone also believed that with the support of the 4G network, this day will never be far away. Okay, as usual, I will answer your questions. In the next half an hour, If you have any questions, you can ask them all. After all, these are new products, and there are bound to be some places where the explanation is not thorough. So Lisa asked everyone. Hello, I want to ask, are these 3 products independently developed by Pioneer Technology? How long did it take? At this time, a female reporter at the scene also stood up at Lisa's signal and asked a question. Of course we developed them independently. Not only now, but also in the future, the products released by Pioneer Technology will only be independently developed by us, and will not be developed by others. As for the time-consuming issue, I am not on the technical department, so I am not sure, but it must be several years. Of course, this is also thanks to the hard work of our technical department. Working overtime day and night for these products has led to the current success. Lisa responded to the reporter's questions calmly with a smile on her face. Chapter 64 Hot. Hello, my question is about the PPT just now. I want to ask, the images that appeared in the video just now include technologies such as unmanned driving, remote control, and unmanned medical cabins. Are these all technologies that your company will develop in the future? This time, the question was asked by an obviously mature reporter. He found that in the video, many of the videos about future technologies have mature ideas. If a company does not have ideas about these, it is basically difficult to have such mature and seemingly flawless videos. That's why he asked this question. This question also made the representatives of high-tech research and development and medical equipment present feel nervous. After Pioneer Technology showed a strong enough attitude to intervene in the medical and communication industries, they don't want to have another giant like this in their industry. This involves company secrets, but I can give a general reply. Pioneer Technology, everything is possible. This time, Lisa smiled mysteriously and replied. Hello, I am a representative of mobile phone company. My question is, if I want to cooperate with your company, regarding the product, I would like to ask about your company's production capacity. Since it is such an advanced product, there will definitely be a huge order volume. Then will your company consider cooperating with other manufacturers to produce accessories? At Lisa's call, a representative of a mobile phone company also stood up and asked the most concerned question of all the company representatives present. So far, we will not consider cooperating with other manufacturers to produce. We are responsible for processing both the core components and spare parts of Pioneer Technology smartphones. As for the production capacity, there is no need to worry at all, because we have just acquired 20 production lines to supply smartphones in all directions. In the future, we also expect to acquire a total of 50 large electronics factories in major regions around the world this quarter. So everyone doesn't have to worry at all. After hearing the man's words, Lisa also smiled and answered. This answer also disappointed some representatives of the electronics factories present. If they could win the order from Pioneer Technology Company, they could even be sure that they would not have to worry about profits in the next 10 years. Unfortunately, it seems that they have extremely high confidentiality standards for the internal parts of mobile phones. In the next half hour, as Lisa continued to answer everyone's questions, time passed in a flash. After Lisa announced the end of the conference, it ended successfully. Lisa finally breathed a sigh of relief as the meeting ended. The other customers in the venue had no intention of taking a break. Everyone rushed to the cooperation negotiation area and on-site order trading area on the first floor of the company like crazy. In the end, the conference was completely over, but for the world, after today, Pioneer Technology's new products will start to explode the world. At this moment, with the end of the conference, various words about keyless smartphones and virtual projections began to appear on the internet, as well as the terrifying restoration photos that Lisa showed at the conference. These scenes were simply outrageous. After seeing them, people in various industries couldn't help but be amazed. A buttonless smartphone? It's fake, right? How can there be a phone without buttons nowadays? It's obviously a scam and hype. It's so funny, what hype? Didn't you see that these reporters tested it themselves? And the CEO of Apple was there. If it was fake, it would have been exposed long ago. Besides, how could so many media outlets collectively fabricate a lie? A company as big as Pioneer Technologies can continue to operate after such a scandal? Do you really think that Baymax has no value? What the above person said is right. This kind of hype is completely meaningless. Even if there is only one Baymax, Pioneer Technologies has already gained both fame and fortune. It would be too obvious to come up with such a fake hype, so it must be real. Thank God, I can still experience this kind of black technology that only exists in comic books in my lifetime. By the way, there are no buttons. How can it be operated? I hate these unconventional mobile phone manufacturers the most. Can't they just make good phones? Why do they have to do all these fancy things? I don't care about you. I'm used to button phones. Anyway, I won't buy this phone from Pioneer Technologies. The person above had better remember what you said today. Do you know the value of 1T memory in a mobile phone? Do you know the practicality of running memory, virtual projection and real-time alarm function? It's dangerous everywhere now. I dare not walk on the street at night, for fear that I will be kidnapped without saving my life. Now I finally have a way to save my life. I hope Pioneer Technology will launch the guard robot as soon as possible, so that I can go out and play at night like during the day. It's so shocking. I didn't expect to see virtual projection. I strongly recommend Pioneer Technology to study the somatosensory warehouse. If there is not enough time, you can also develop a somatosensory instrument that can interact with virtual images in advance. It would be best if the user can choose the somatosensory part by himself. The person above, I can hear your calculations in the Atlantic Ocean. I support the person above. I hope Pioneer Technology will open the virtual projection module as soon as possible so that we can DIY it ourselves. In this way, at least we can play games faster. No problem. Anyway, according to the Vice President of Pioneer Technology, virtual projection can also play movies and play games. These are enough for me. My inventory is already ready. Big brother, please. Please. Similar discussions are happening on almost every country's own network. It can be said that as long as there is a network, people can see discussions about Pioneer mobile phones and virtual projections almost anywhere. At this time, with the emergence of a software called Little Blue Bird, everyone found that this software was more convenient than website discussions. Users from all over the world can register an account here and then publish their own dynamics for the world to see. Moreover, they can chat without any sense of distance. Even if two cross-national users do not speak each other's language at all, they can chat without any communication barriers with the help of software translation. For a while, as users continued to spread the word, people gradually began to gather here. At this moment, with the end of the press conference, Killian no longer had to worry about a series of things related to product sales. Now that Lisa has stepped up to take charge, he has been much more relaxed. Chapter 65, SHIELD's attention. It's just that Killian is relaxed, while Lisa is tired. With the end of the previous press conference, dozens of large and medium-sized companies and enterprises from all over the country, and even national representatives have found Lisa, wanting to conduct in-depth strategic cooperation on Pioneer Technologies products. Use political concessions and compromises in exchange for greater profits on products. In short, all this is mutually beneficial for both parties. Killian and his team have obtained a steady stream of funds and reputation, and those companies and enterprises or countries have also gained the customized technology products they want, which is of great significance to their future development. At this moment, Pioneer Technologies' intelligent products are more like a big storm, constantly sweeping across the world. Even Microsoft, Stark Group and those old technology giants have to bow their heads and retreat wherever they pass. For a time, Pioneer Technology is even more popular. At the same time, on the other side, in a secret base. This is the latest biological weapon deployed by the US military on the battlefield. It is incredibly powerful and has already eliminated many militarized cities for them. According to their plan, the next goal is to prepare to deploy it on the Syrian battlefield. And this biological weapon, according to my investigation, is a biological weapon jointly developed by the military and Pioneer Technologies, codenamed T-000 Tyrant. According to the information I have obtained, the next step they will most likely take is to lead by Pioneer Technologies, with the hardliners headed by Ross in the military and the Democrats headed by Kennedy in the government, to legislate the legalization of human experimentation projects on prisoners in prisons. At this time, a red-haired woman with a dashing figure and full of energy took out a USB flash drive from her body and handed it to the man sitting on the table, and then spoke. Avant-garde technology? I didn't expect that after giving the world a big surprise a few months ago, they have now secretly made another surprise. Their identity as an arms company was approved by the military. It seems that before this, Avant-garde Technology had already started the biological weapons project, and then found the military. After the two colluded, the military approved them. After taking the USB flash drive provided by his newly recruited capable subordinate, the man with the one-eyed eye patch immediately plugged it into his computer. After the initial antivirus test confirmed that it was correct, the man began to look at the videos and graphic materials inside. It can be said that the materials are very similar. There are not only battlefield videos, but also close-up videos of the so-called tyrant shot by the military. It can be imagined that the shooter must have infiltrated a military camp and obtained these materials. So, what's next? Do we need to supervise them? After hearing what our boss said, Natasha immediately asked, "Yes, if such weapons are allowed to develop, it will be too dangerous. Natasha, I need you to find a way to sneak into Avant-Garde Technology Company. According to intelligence, they have a 40-story underground building on a small island in Miami. And there are extremely strict guards on it, guarding it in all directions without blind spots 24 hours a day. I seriously suspect that this is their underground secret laboratory. I need you to sneak in, get first-hand information, and then send it back. We will decide how to deal with them next depending on the situation." After thinking for a while, the man immediately said to Natasha in front of him, who was the top agent from the famous Red House of the Soviet Union. This was also the top ace agent he had recruited with great effort. For such a difficult undercover mission, it is very difficult to select candidates. Otherwise, Natasha would not have become his capable subordinate not long after coming to S.H.I.E.L.D. Understood. After hearing the man's order, Natasha immediately turned around and walked out. For her now, the only purpose of living is to fight crime and maintain world peace. On the other hand, with the emergence of pioneer technology in the world, they have now completely established their foothold. At this time, more and more companies came to discuss cooperation. Among them were the remaining 6 major American pharmaceutical companies. Mr. Killian, we have always been friendly to your company. This time, several of us came to visit, one to ask for the agency rights of your company's medical virtual projection equipment, and the other to have in-depth cooperation with your company. Under the guidance of the secretary, several people soon met Killian in the conference room, and Laszlo Novartis, the president of Novartis Pharmaceuticals, took the initiative and spoke in a friendly manner. I believe this, otherwise, it would not be only the representatives of Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer who came to the door to acquire me before. After listening to the other party's words, Killian also said calmly with a smile on his face. Killian had no doubt about their goodwill, otherwise if Alex, the president of Johnson & Johnson, had won over their 6 pharmaceutical companies and gathered the power of the world's top 10 pharmaceutical companies to sanction him, he would be a bit tricky. After all, no matter how powerful Baymax is, it is just a medical testing machine. If it wants to open the surgical function, it needs the permission of the US FDA. With the influence of these 10 major companies, it is no problem for the US government to hold them back for a few years of FDA certification. In this way, his company would not have developed smoothly to its current scale. It is just that success and failure are the same, because they do not have such big ambitions, so the company's development is naturally not as large as the previous ones that came to trouble him. But for Killian, these don't matter. No matter how good the other party is, it depends on their next move. If they ask for too much, Killian can only smile. They are just some clowns who are pushed up by others. As long as their interests are damaged, they have to stand up to solve the problem. Simply put, their vision is too small. Compared to them, each of us here can truly represent our company. We also know that the only way to develop is to cooperate and win-win. And the medical equipment and drugs related to the companies here, plus your company's database scanning detection, if we can carry out deeper cooperation in the future, and if we are fortunate enough to cooperate to develop a real medical robot, this will be a real benefit to the public, a real win-win situation. After hearing that Killian had no prejudice against them, the leader Laszlo Novartis also spoke up. Chapter 66, Pharmaceutical Enterprise Cooperation Prayer. The purpose of their visit this time is obviously to see the great role of virtual projection in medicine. Imagine a patient who needs surgery. Before that, database scans the patient's whole body and models it, and then the virtual projection perfectly reproduces it one-to-one. At this time, the doctor operates the model, performs the operation, and slowly zooms in to observe. This is simply a surgical artifact. If all this is done by a robot that has medical knowledge and 100% execution ability, it will be even more shocking and perfect. Win-win is of course no problem. In fact, not only is it our company's private internal culture, but also a public declaration. I emphasize benefiting the society, giving back to the people, and bringing a better life. And these are naturally inseparable from the joint maintenance of several people and the companies behind them, but I think we need to study some cooperation methods and details. At this moment, Killian also spoke up. Of course, this is the draft agreement jointly drawn up by several of our companies. Mr. Killian, you can take a look first. Many contents are a bit rough, and we can discuss them in time. After hearing Killian's reply, Laszlo Novartis and a group of presidents also breathed a sigh of relief, and then Laszlo took out a cooperation agreement and handed it to Killian. For this cooperation, they can be said to have made sufficient preparations. Now the situation is stronger than people. The equipment has been forcibly intervened and occupied by Pioneer Technology Company. Although they can rely on the old equipment that has been sold before and continue to operate in the field of medicine. However, with the press conference of Pioneer Technology this time, they are worried that if it is delayed, they will not really enter the pharmaceutical industry and come up with some special medicine. Although it is difficult for a company to develop these drugs from scratch without several years or decades. But such a company has even developed robots, several versions of smartphones and network signals, and virtual projections that have never been heard of before. What is impossible? So the remaining company executives who had not yet had conflicts with Killian gathered together in an instant, trying to find a way to get on board the avant-garde technology aircraft carrier in advance. To this end, they even prepared $30 billion each, and Laszlo Novartis, as the initiator, invested $50 billion, a total of $200 billion, to cooperate with avant-garde technology. You have to know that these are all real cash flows. No matter where they invest, there are countless money-making projects that want to rush them to invest, but now they are rushing to take this huge sum of money to Killian to ask them to invest. And there is also the possibility of being rejected. It may be a bit ridiculous to say it out loud. If you want to throw money at others, others will still disagree. Well, you are very sincere. I would say you are much better than Alex and his gang of idiots. After reading the entire 2-page simple text contract, Killian nodded and smiled at them. Then he changed the subject and said, but $200 billion is used to establish new Pioneer Pharmaceuticals. You want 49% of the shares, which is a bit too much? Mr. Killian, this is not $200 billion of real estate. You have to know that this is cash flow. Even for several of our companies, it is very difficult to gather so much cash flow at once. It can be said that you are very sincere. And we don't want to have any ideas about this new company. You have to know that 49% of the shares, the 6 of us will only have 8% of the shares on average. We can't do anything at all, and we just want a guarantee. After hearing that Killian had problems with the share allocation of their plan, Laszlo took the initiative to speak. You have to know that $200 billion in exchange for 49% of the shares of a newly established company is definitely a big step backward. You have to know that Pfizer's current market value is only $200 billion. If they really work together, they can acquire this company in full. But now Killian actually despised me for asking too much? Believe me, with such a big gap in the pharmaceutical industry, you don't really think I only care about medical equipment, right? You know, the pharmaceutical market of just a small or medium-sized country has a potential of hundreds of billions, not to mention dozens of populous countries such as the East, India, the Soviet Union, the United States, and Indonesia. Each of these has a trillion-level market waiting to be developed. And as a company, will I give up this? Since you have come here on your own initiative, then I will reveal some news to you in advance. The new drug has been successful, and its effect will definitely exceed your expectations. By then, most of the world's diseases will be vulnerable to it, and now I will give you a chance, $200 billion, 15% of the shares, and you can divide it up yourself. Whether it is cooperation or maintaining the current relationship, I don't care, as long as you don't jump out like those fools and make trouble. When hearing that Laszlo wanted to explain something, Killian stood up directly and spoke to the few people with great confidence. That's right. The T0 drug has been completely developed and is now in the final review stage. Under Kennedy's operation and the military's call, everything is accelerated. Now as long as it passes the final FDA clinical trial, it can be officially listed. At that time, Pioneer Technology will once again rise. As for the few people who want to cooperate in front of him, Killian only chose to give them a chance because the agreement they gave did have a lot of compromises and concessions. Otherwise, there would be no shares of 15 points, just 8 points, whether you want it or not. As Killian's voice fell, everyone present now also looked embarrassed, with a tasteless expression, eating tasteless and throwing away a pity. On the one hand, they felt that if they didn't get on the big ship of pioneer technology this time and refused, then there would be this conflict, and even the other party would not cooperate with them. On the other hand, they felt that $200 billion for only 15 points was really a loss. For a while, everyone's eyebrows exchanged, and they all felt a headache. I'll be waiting for you in the next office. When you've discussed it, you can ask the secretary at the door to call me. Seeing that it was difficult for several people to discuss it here, Killian stood up and walked out of the room after speaking to everyone. It was only after Killian left that Laszlo and other CEOs began to discuss it one by one. Laszlo, what should we do now? From the look of him, it's obvious that he has us in his grasp. What can we do? Technology is everything. Now the technology is in the hands of others. It's just a matter of a word whether they want to block you or not. Comma. Chapter 67, liar? Or a miracle? None of this matters. Didn't you hear? He just said that he has developed a new drug that can solve most diseases. That's the key, okay. Isn't that possible? What drug can achieve this? Even if Einstein were alive, it wouldn't work, right? It's hard to say. Look at how confident he was just now. I bet he's not lying to us. He really has that confidence and the courage to do so. Then what should we do? If that's the case, our original idea of stepping back and staying out of it if we don't succeed will be in vain. When he really releases the drug, we'll all have to change our careers. For a while, along with Killian's attitude and the mysterious new drug, the original Buddhist thoughts of several presidents also became anxious. For them, as long as the company doesn't lose money and develop steadily, they can just go with the flow. And now, let alone steady development, it's a good thing if they are not squeezed out and go bankrupt. How about agreeing? At this time, Levin Cohen, the president of AstraZeneca, the last of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies, spoke in a low voice. After all, according to the current development trend of pioneer technology, their final outcome will be just like those small pharmaceutical companies they acquired, being acquired or cleared out. Hey, there's only this way. After all, they can even research DAB-A. Every time I see that thing, I wonder, can this really be researched by current technology? But there is no way. Their technology is powerful. We will be beaten if we lag behind. It's just normal market competition that will eliminate us. After hearing Levin Cohen's proposal, another president with half-white hair sighed. Now he is old and will retire in a few years. He just wants to hand over the company to his children intact from his hands. As for other struggles and progress, he has no idea at all. Hey, I can agree, but I asked to see his so-called product after signing the contract. Even if we lose, we have to lose clearly. As others agreed one after another, the last president who was still insisting, looking at the general trend, had no choice but to say his last insistence helplessly. Of course, after all, this amount of money is not a small amount. Since we want to invest, we as investors should also know the investment project. This time, the few people did not say anything to the man's words, but nodded in agreement. Then, when Killian pushed the door again, Mr. Killian, we agree to your request, but please allow us to put forward a condition. Otherwise, I think these old friends of mine will not be able to sleep well when they go back. The crowd compromised with Killian, and the representative Laszlo said with a wry smile. Of course. Looking at the defeated faces in front of him, Killian almost knew what their request was. After all, he didn't believe that they would not bite the bait he had put out before. Then, as Killian thought, Laszlo proposed to let them see the magic medicine that Killian mentioned. And in order to show sincerity, a cooperation agreement was signed on the spot under the witness of lawyers from both sides. The $200 billion in funds will also arrive the next day. Then the few people were taken to a medical laboratory by Killian. Inside, there were more than a dozen people who were suffering from various serious diseases and were in desperate pain or even incurable. They came here with the last glimmer of hope after seeing the recruitment of clinical trial volunteers by the pharmaceutical company under Pioneer Technology, and claiming that it could treat many serious diseases. After all, Pioneer Technology can even come up with all kinds of black technologies, especially with future robots like Baymax, so it should not be impossible to treat their diseases. What's going on now? At this time, Killian, who came to the observation room with several presidents from the exclusive passage, asked Samuel, the person in charge, in front of him. "Boss, all the volunteers are in place. Here is the list of personnel and related information. They include AIDS, tumors, gastric cancer, early, middle and late stages of esophageal cancer, as well as diabetes, uremia, leukemia, etc., which cover almost all kinds of serious diseases in and outside the world. In terms of welfare benefits, each volunteer participating in the clinical trial will receive a one-time reward of $10,000, and if they agree to our follow-up survey, it will be increased to $15,000 per year. Everyone here agrees to this." After hearing Killian's question, Samuel explained directly. After all, most of these people are people who have been devastated by diseases. Let alone such a generous reward, even if there is no reward, they will be willing to come. However, at this time, after hearing that Killian's clinical trial actually included so many patients with serious diseases, including advanced cancer and AIDS, several presidents who already knew about medicine could not help but look at each other in surprise. Before they came here, they thought that what Killian said could cure most diseases were minor symptoms such as colds and fevers, and at most it could be considered a cure for stomach problems and headaches. But what they didn't expect was that they saw such a scene as soon as they arrived. There were all kinds of patients, and they had seen almost all the types they had seen in their lives. Some of them even had the retention needles for treatment still on their bodies, and a large number of them had different degrees of quail-sized bumps on their bodies due to various treatments. Even the few people who were well informed were still a little touched after seeing this scene. However, they didn't say anything. As long as they confirmed that these people were real patients, not hired by Pioneer Technology, it would be fine. Then, after looking at the volunteers on the list, the president at the end took out his mobile phone and sent a message. Killian saw this and didn't stop him. Every message that entered Pioneer Technology and wanted to send out would be filtered by DAB, and any sensitive words would be intercepted in time. Not to mention that he had already seen the message sent by the other party through the glasses he was wearing. "Very good, let's get started." After a slight smile, Killian spoke to Samuel in front of him. Immediately after receiving Killian's instructions, Samuel wore a white coat and walked through the passage on the side and walked into the clinic. "Thank you for the 3,000 coins rewarded by Zoo. Thank you for the 299 coins rewarded by 10 miles of peach blossoms is not as good as you. Thank you for the 100 coins rewarded by Bookfriend 20230620213510157, and thank you all for your support." Because the display on the author's side is a bit incomplete, there are still many friends reward support that has not been displayed, but the author would like to thank everyone for their support to the author here. Thank you. Thanks, Greek letter Omega. Chapter 68 Shocking Virus Drugs. This time, 3 patients with AIDS, gastric cancer, and uremia in the late stage were brought to the bed by several nurses. After putting on various medical testing instruments, Samuel officially entered. Then he solemnly used fingerprint verification to unlock the low-temperature freezer on the table. With a beep sound, it opened after a burst of white low-temperature fog. What came into view inside were several tubes of T-virus with azure blue liquid, and lying next to it was a special syringe for T-virus. A syringe similar to a nail gun, and the top of it was also blank. At a glance, everyone knew that the canned liquid was to be installed. After seeing this scene, several presidents couldn't help but feel admiration. A syringe can actually play so many tricks. If they were volunteers, I am afraid that after seeing such a high-tech device, they would also feel confident. It may be a little painful next. Please get ready. I'm going to start the injection. After the T-virus tube was firmly installed on the syringe, Samuel said to the patient in front of him, "Haha, believe me, I've been immune to the pain I've endured in my life. Just come as you please." After hearing Samuel's words, the man said with a wry smile. At this time, the man's immune system had been destroyed by the late stage of AIDS, which made his body skinny and covered with bruises. At first glance, some people would even think he looked like a mummy. However, Samuel, who had long been accustomed to such scenes, just smiled slightly, and then saw Samuel inside pointing the syringe upwards, pushing out the air in the syringe, and then gently injecting the syringe containing the T-virus into the patient's body. Mr. Killian, the medicine you are talking about is not the potion just now, right? Then what's the point of having us come here? Let us come to watch the injection process. Or do you want to invite us to watch every treatment? After seeing that Samuel had no other reaction after the injection, a president at the side couldn't help but ask. After all, they also reacted at this time. Since it is a drug injection, it must take time. Even for patients like those in the advanced stage of AIDS in front of them, it is not impossible to have a treatment period of several years. And it is unknown how long it will take to wait for the medicine Killian mentioned to cure this person. Or is this medicine really effective in improving the immunity of the patient in the advanced stage of AIDS in front of them? This is too magical. For a while, this idea only appeared in his mind for a moment, and was thrown away by the man. Igor, calm down. Since Mr. Killian did this, he must have his deep meaning. We just need to watch quietly. After hearing Igor speak, Laszlo also spoke. Haha, no need. Since President Igor can't hold back his doubts, I'll explain it to you. First of all, in the drug tube is our Pioneer Technology's latest drug T-Virus, T02, which is also the flagship product that will be sold to the outside world to cure various major diseases. Its main special ability is that after entering the body of an organism, the T-Virus will begin to self-replicate and fuse and assimilate with the host cells, and then integrate its own genetic material into the chromosomes of the host cells to complete the purpose of long-term symbiosis. Once the fusion is successful, the cells in the host body will be fully strengthened by the T-Virus. Use strong self-resistance to achieve the purpose of self-resistance to invading viruses in the body. And in this, because it has completed fusion and symbiosis with the host cells after entering the host body, the T-Virus will actively engulf the foreign invading virus and then strengthen the host's own cells. That's why I said that this drug can truly treat most of the diseases in the world. Because basically all diseases are caused by the host's own lack of resistance, and the T-Virus perfectly strengthens this point, engulfing and strengthening. It is like a furnace, and the foreign invading virus is the nutrient of the furnace. With the increase of nutrients, the host will benefit more. Of course, if there is no virus invasion, the T-Virus will completely calm down and enter the incubation period to wait quietly, and this can well avoid the trouble caused by strong immunity to the person concerned. Then, Killian took the initiative to introduce the role of the T-Virus to several people. As expected, with Killian's explanation, everyone's mouths were so big that they could even put a pebble. There is such a drug. This is too unimaginable. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but murmur. After all, a drug that can achieve both offense and defense is simply a fantasy. It's like you found a girlfriend, and then you found that she is not only the richest person in the world, but also loves you very much, has plenty of time to accompany you, and has the superpower of free deformation, and will satisfy you in different ways every day. This is no longer heaven, this is pure fantasy, and now, the T-Virus introduced by Killian is like this. Wait, you said this is a virus. After a while, someone finally reacted, and then said in shock with some surprise. After hearing the man's words, the other CEOs all looked at Killian. Of course, viral therapy appeared as early as 1919, but it was forgotten by the public because it was eliminated by the medical market. But this does not mean that it is useless. On the contrary, viral therapy can exert shocking capabilities after reasonable research and development. As I said before, the T-Virus, its function is to strengthen the human body's immunity from the genetic level, and engulf invading cells, increase the host's own immune mechanism, and then kill foreign viruses together. Killian nodded and continued. But where did your virus come from? After figuring it out, the man couldn't help but ask with a look of loss of composure. You know, if it is true as Killian said, then this drug is not for most diseases, but almost all diseases. It is precisely for this reason that the man lost his composure. I'm sorry, the source of the material is the company's core secret. Except me, no one knows its source. Killian understood the man's eagerness very well, so he smiled and refused. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Recovered? After hearing Killian's answer, the few people didn't say anything. After all, if this thing really works as Killian said, let alone Killian, they would do the same, and even apply for 24-hour military protection when traveling. But before seeing the specific results, They still have a question mark about these. After all, viruses, phagocytic cells, feeding back to the host to improve human immunity, each of these is like a fairy tale. But for these uneasiness and doubts in everyone's hearts, Killian can't be like a close sister to solve their worries and doubts. It can only be said that everything is left to time. After that, during the waiting time, Killian had some snacks brought, and new Pioneer technology top-equipped smartphones were given to several people, so that they would not be too bored after a long wait. It must be said that although some of these people are over 50 years old, their learning efficiency is also very fast. It didn't take long for them to learn to surf the internet like young people, and even watch the selfie videos uploaded by netizens from all over the world. There are many videos of hot and sexy beauties showing off their bodies for attention. In addition, everything on the internet is just beginning, and the relevant laws are still in their infancy, and the management is not so strict, so several middle-aged people can't help but have the idea of going around the world to experience local customs. After a while, Killian's new drug didn't conquer them, but this small smartphone conquered them all. Killian, if you don't mind, maybe we can also use that money to invest in your mobile phone company, which is also a good choice. Yes. After someone proposed it, the other presidents couldn't help but nod in agreement. After all, they really didn't expect that a small mobile phone would have so many tricks. Not to mention taking pictures and recording videos, the pictures taken are just like the real people in front of them. Just a built-in chat software is so interesting, which is really surprising. Not to mention all kinds of high-tech propaganda. Haha, you still watch it first. If you still think so after watching it, I don't care. Killian just smiled slightly at the proposal of several people, and then signaled that the man not far away from them began to move. After Killian's reminder, several CEOs stopped playing with their phones and stood up, looking intently at the man lying on the medical bed. At this moment, with a sudden twitch, the man felt his whole body begin to tremble violently, as if there were worms crawling inside his body, and as if there was a burning sensation from the inside out. What's his condition now? Why is he like this? After seeing the man's changes, one of the CEOs couldn't help but ask, "This is a normal body reaction. Do you know chemotherapy? The principle is the same. The reason why his reaction is so intense now is mainly because his cells, after fusing with the T-virus, began to push all the cells in his body to engulf the virus. Because his disease is in the late stage, the early engulfment of the virus may appear more intense. It's like a battlefield. When the enemy has occupied most of the area, the only way to win is to fight back. Don't worry, there will be no problem. After the cells have completely engulfed the virus in his body, the body's self-cleaning function will begin, and all the residues will be excreted from the body. In this way, it will be considered completed." After hearing the man's words, Killian explained. After hearing Killian's explanation, the CEOs present suddenly realized it. After all, they may not know the principle of the T-virus, but if it is replaced by a strong version of chemotherapy, it can also be explained. It can even be said that if there is no such strong reaction, if the man gets better later, they will think that he may be set up. In this way, everyone present was watching attentively. As time passed slowly, after more than 10 minutes, the man suddenly opened his mouth. At this time, the nurse beside him also skillfully brought a basin that had been prepared long ago. Then, in an instant, the man vomited several mouthfuls of black blood, and at the same time, a foul smell came from his whole body. Looking closely, you will find that the skin metabolism of the man's body has accelerated dozens or hundreds of times in this process. Now the man is like he hasn't taken a bath for several years. However, as more and more black mud appeared on his body, the man's body gradually began to return to normal. The whole process took only 10 minutes. After returning to normal, the man felt that his body had never been clearer. Even his eyes were much brighter. At this moment, after reacting for a long time, the man rubbed his stomach, which was gradually disappearing from the pain, and then looked around in a daze. "How do you feel now?" After seeing that the man was fine, Samuel also came forward and asked. As for the other nurses, in addition to helping Samuel, there were several others who were recording the man's vital signs and related data in an orderly manner. There was even one nurse who completed the preliminary blood sampling with the man's eye before he could react. "It's so strange, I suddenly feel very relaxed and no longer in pain. I seem to be fine." After hearing Samuel's words, The man who felt his physical condition at this moment spoke excitedly before even waiting for the other party to make a judgment. After all, he had been sick for more than 10 years, and the long time had long made him accustomed to paying attention to even the slightest changes in his body. And now, this feedback is particularly obvious, as if the heavy stone pressing on his body suddenly disappeared out of thin air. What? After hearing the man's words, the CEOs in the observation room were shocked. After all, the other party was in so much pain a second ago, but now he is fine? Painkillers are not so effective. Really, I feel really fine, and the organs inside my body don't hurt anymore. At this time, as if to prove his judgment, the man suddenly stood up, jogging on the spot, and jumped excitedly. Chapter 70, Personal Verification by CEOs. At this moment, he once again had a good body, and he was extremely happy. After that, Samuel began to arrange for people to conduct relevant tests on him. Doctor, the test results are out. There is no lesion in his body. As long as he rests for a period of time, he will be better than normal people. Then, after a long time, the nurse in charge of the test reported to Samuel excitedly. And this sentence also shocked everyone present. At this moment, everyone didn't know what to say. Liar? It was cured in an instant. This is too much to treat them as idiots. Really? Today's technology is so powerful that it can even conquer cancer? And time. Isn't this effect too good? Suddenly, as if he thought of something, a president in the observation room quickly raised his hand to look at the $1 million mechanical watch on his wrist. It has only been less than an hour since the start of the experiment. What about the course of treatment? What about the cycle? In an instant, he showed an incredible look and spoke. Mr. Killian, can we personally check the next examination? At this time, Laszlo on the side did the same thing, and then took the initiative to speak to Killian. You know, if the effect of the previous blue medicine bottle is really so good, then they will really make a lot of money, not to mention 10% of 200 billion, it is worth 2 trillion. Of course. After hearing Laszlo's words, Killian made a friendly gesture of invitation after answering. Then, several people followed the nurse into the ward under the leadership of Laszlo. Afterwards, after entering, several knowledgeable presidents took the initiative to get close to the operators of the laboratory department and looked at them. Some people even took the initiative to operate. However, because they were too excited, they also aroused the disgust of many medical staff, but they also knew that these people were all guests of the boss, so they didn't say anything, but waited quietly on the side. Afterwards, several presidents went through all the CT tests, X-rays, blood tests, cancer cell tests, B ultrasound, MRI, etc., as long as they could reflect cancer-related data. The tumor markers in the patient's body have also disappeared. Even the carcinoembryonic antigen index in the blood has decreased and has become negative. This is too incredible. It's simply a miracle from God. However, after the examination, they were shocked to find that the man's body was unexpectedly normal. In fact, the only place where cancer cells could be detected was in the man's stool test and the dirt on his body. Wow! For a moment, after seeing this result, everyone present was shocked. I am not dreaming now. Even one of the presidents was still a little unbelievable and said in a daze. After all, you have to know that this is a patient in the advanced stage of cancer, and he was cured in just 1 hour? And they have been developing for decades, and they have only been able to develop targeted drugs that can control the disease and try not to make it worse. The true gospel of mankind has arrived at this moment. Laszlo, who has the deepest knowledge of medicine among the crowd, looked at the test report in front of him, muttered with an indescribable expression on his face. At this moment, he could even imagine the cheers of all cancer patients around the world and the wailing of those companies that have invested hundreds of billions of dollars in cancer research. You know, the market for cancer drugs is extremely huge, because it is well known that nowadays, except for early-stage cancers, can basically only be controlled but not cured, and drugs are life-saving drugs for every patient. No matter how expensive it is, they will buy it as long as it is useful. Therefore, many companies have invested a lot of money in this industry. As a result, now, everything has not even started, and it has been strangled in the cradle by Killian's pioneering technology. At this moment, Laszlo even felt that it was not impossible for those people to form a group in the underground world to offer a high reward for Killian's head. After all, the effect of this drug is no less than that of a person who claimed that water can be used as oil. Mr. Killian, Are you sure we can start cooperating? At this time, after Laszlo came to his senses, he asked Killian, who appeared behind him. Now he no longer has the confidence he had at the beginning. After all, the finished product of the drug has come out. Not to mention eating it alone, even if he wants to share it with others, he can easily find leaders of various countries or trillion-level large companies to cooperate. And even as long as Killian releases a piece of news, countless people will come to him begging for help. Of course, I said that for Pioneer Technology, we only want to benefit the society and the people. The market is huge, and I can't eat it all by myself. So, next I have to trouble everyone here to work with us to bring this drug to the hands of the people of the world. Seeing Laszlo's attitude, Killian was extremely satisfied, and then he spoke with a smile on his face. The reason why he asked them to come and see was not to hurt them, but Killian wanted them to know how much advantage they had taken. At this time, if they can recognize their status, put themselves in the right position, and then seek cooperation from him, Killian will naturally welcome them warmly. And if they don't recognize themselves, still think that both parties are on an equal footing, and even think that the tens of billions or hundreds of billions they invested are a lot, if they cooperate with this attitude, then Killian can only say sorry. But at a glance, there are basically no stupid people in the latter, which is also what makes Killian most satisfied. At least he doesn't have to look for other people. The reason why Killian is willing to cooperate with them on these shares is that the market is indeed too large. He can't do one business and open a sales business, so that his company will monopolize everything from production to sales. If he continues like this, the consequence will not be that every country welcomes him, but that they will be afraid of him. After all, as Pioneer Technology grows stronger, it has a presence in the communications industry, medical industry, mobile phone industry, etc. If such a behemoth controls everything in its own hands, how can it make those big countries feel at ease? In other words, if you eat meat and don't let others drink soup, naturally there will be many people who want to kill you. As for sales, Killian doesn't mind others drinking some soup in his bowl. Chapter 71. The base was invaded. Killian. At this time, those who said this and that before, although their attitude was not bad, but also held the mentality of investing in you and making money, were also shocked at this time. The tall and handsome man in front of them whispered. Their status suddenly changed, and they didn't know what they felt in their hearts. But at this time, Killian didn't care about their psychological activities, as long as there were no traitors. Okay, we have seen enough here. Please follow me to the conference room to discuss in detail. After seeing that everyone had no extra words, Killian took the initiative to speak. Then after Killian took the initiative to go out, everyone followed him. And they deliberately lagged behind Killian and talked about something with each other. After a while, in the new conference room, Laszlo, as the initiator, squeezed his hands awkwardly, looking at Killian sitting in the main seat, for a long time, and didn't know what to say. After all, at this moment, even as a pharmaceutical giant, he felt panic in his heart when facing this drug that could change human history. However, with Killian's opening words, the awkward atmosphere was broken. First, each company present here can get 10% of Pioneer Pharmaceuticals shares and the right to sell the T-virus medicine. You will divide the ownership and shares of each region of the world by yourselves. After the agreement is reached, report to the head office and they will give me feedback. Second, the sales rights are given to you. Correspondingly, we will not interfere too much in other matters except for the relevant matters of the medicine itself. You will solve them by yourselves. But it cannot damage the company's image. Those who violate it will be removed from the company and the right to sell the medicine will be revoked. Second, I need you to promise that your company, no matter at any time, must maintain a high degree of unity of opinion with the head office, that is, Pioneer Technology, unite as one, and reject internal struggles. Correspondingly, you will all become allies and receive the full support of Pioneer Technology. After seeing that no one in the room had anything to say, Killian also spoke. And just like that, with Killian talking about several key terms, the cooperation between the two parties officially began without no objection from several people. At this moment, Killian has officially taken over the medical industry. With the 6 giants of the medical industry laying the foundation, plus the T-virus drug, the entire medical industry will be truly under his control in a short time. Then, he can take a breather. After that, after finalizing the general direction, Killian left a meeting room, and the company's head will be responsible for the remaining issues of both parties. At this time, Killian has something else to do, that is, catching mice. What's the situation now? After returning to the office, Killian opened the communication connection of the research island. After seeing the face of his deputy on the other side, Killian immediately asked, "Boss, everything is under our control. After you and Dr. Samuel left, the island's garrison was suddenly transferred away, and there was a slight oversight, which led to the intrusion of a person suspected to be an official intelligence officer of a major country. Now she is sneaking through the ventilation duct to the second underground floor. Boss, don't worry, I have sent security forces to arrest her." After seeing the boss answer the video call, the deputy on the other side of the phone sat upright and spoke hurriedly. "After all, you have to know that now that the boss and the top leader are gone, such a highly confidential base of the company has been infiltrated by the enemy. No matter what, it is the responsibility of him as the second in command. Even if it is not good, he may be fired directly." Thinking of this, the man couldn't help but panic. "Wait, don't be in a hurry. If I remember correctly, the content being developed on the second underground floor is the hellhound and the liquor, right?" Just as the man thought, after learning that his secret base had been infiltrated, Killian wanted to dismiss this guy, but after listening to his report, he suddenly thought of something and spoke up. This project was when the experimental island was first bought, because it had not yet begun to expand underground, and the T-Virus project had already been launched. So the relevant experiments were started on the second underground floor. Later, as the number of floors expanded, more important experiments such as the Tyrant were also moved to the deepest underground. As for the hellhound and the liquor, because they were not of much value, one was really ugly in appearance, and the other was not very powerful, Killian did not let them move, but left them there for the researchers to study on their own. See if they can be reused and give them a little surprise. After that, Killian was too busy and did not ask about this project. Now, after the man's reminder, he suddenly remembered, and then an interesting idea came to his mind. "Yes, boss." After hearing the boss's question, the man immediately answered. "Close the ventilation ducts leading to other places, and let our little mouse go directly to the second underground floor. I remember that the hellhound has no actual combat data yet. Since he can sneak in, he must be very skilled. Let him try. Also block the door and let Blackwatch be ready to clean up at any time." Then, Killian gave his deputy in front of him with a sneer on his face. "You have to know that the United States can deal with some highly confidential companies that have a very close cooperation with the government directly after catching spies. Unless you cooperate, you deserve to be beaten to death. Not to mention a large company of the size of Pioneer Technology. Even if Pioneer Technology does not pursue it, the retaliation from the military and the government will make the parties and the forces behind them suffer. You have to know that Killian has spent so many shares so far, that is not for them to watch and do nothing. When you become a community of interests, as long as your interests are damaged even a little bit, your friends will take the initiative to solve these potential troubles for you without waiting for you to ask." Then, along with Killian's instructions, the deputy on the side also immediately gave instructions. At this time, as the person involved who has infiltrated this underground base, with every step she took down, she was surprised to find that something was wrong. "Thank you 40 for the reward of 1,500 coins. Thank you book friend 022221212328165541 for the reward of 100 coins. Thank you readers for your support, love you. Go." Chapter 72 Infiltrating the Base. First, the signal was blocked. Needless to say, although many companies would not do this, some highly confidential corporate R&D bases would do this, which was understandable. But after she sneaked in here, she even had a feeling that the people she met were even stronger than the people that the organization had spent a lot of effort to train. It was just that they were different in their specialties. Moreover, after entering the ventilation duct, she was still moving forward directly to the underground, but she subconsciously found that every step she took seemed to be pre-designed by someone, as if an invisible big hand was urging her to move forward. However, after walking for a while, she suddenly found a different light in front of her. After looking at the pipe she had been coming down from behind, and then looking at the light not far away, Natasha gritted her teeth and continued to go down. After coming to the top of the ventilation duct, through the observation of the blinds, Natasha found that this was a place similar to a biological sanatorium. Because there were countless breeding chambers below that she had never seen before and were emitting low temperatures. The reason why she could see them was that there were huge pipes connecting each breeding chamber. And there was also an electronic panel next to the breeding chamber, as if it was recording something. Unfortunately, it was too far away, and Natasha could not see it clearly. The whole room looked extremely quiet at this moment. It was as if the researchers on the entire floor had just taken a vacation, and there was no one. Although Natasha knew in advance that the senior executives of Pioneer Technology would evacuate due to an emergency meeting, the grassroots researchers should have insisted on their posts. Then, after her eyes kept turning around and thinking for half a day, Natasha finally chose to take out the tools she carried with her, and then quietly opened the shutters with their help. Swoosh! Not long after, with a slight landing sound, Natasha landed as steadily as a cat. The whole process was quiet and easy. After landing, Natasha looked around and confirmed that there was no danger. Then she turned on the recorder on her chest and approached the incubator to observe the inside through the gap. Unfortunately, perhaps because it was too dark inside, Natasha could not see anything except the mucus-like skin inside. After taking a picture of the entire laboratory, Natasha saw researcher's ID card on the table at the door when she was about to leave the room. It seemed to be thrown here casually, and Natasha subconsciously picked it up. After all, an underground base of this level should require an ID card to pass. Then she walked to the next room, although she didn't know what was inside. But her intuition told her that she would not be disappointed. Before and after she approached the glass door, as expected, the electronic system above showed that identity recognition was required, and Natasha decisively leaned her ID card against it. Then with a beep sound, the door was unlocked. Natasha also carefully pushed the door open and walked in. Although everything has been going well so far, she always feels a layer of haze in her heart. Then, just after her front foot entered the door she had originally entered was also closed and locked. At this moment, Natasha's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Sure enough, after she came in, all this should be done intentionally by the people of Pioneer Technology, just to guide her here. After trying to open the door she had entered before, Natasha picked up a signature board on the table beside her, and then walked in with a vigilant look. At this moment, she can be sure that there is definitely something else waiting for her in front. Then, as she continued to walk inside, what came into view were cages similar to those in a pet store, but the difference was that these cages were all filled with unknown dogs without fur, and many even had holes in their skin and flesh. At this moment, even Natasha, who is accustomed to the darkness of this world, couldn't help but tremble in her heart. Natasha could even clearly see that the dogs were looking at her with bloodthirsty eyes like wild beasts. At this moment, she had no doubt that if there were no shackles on the cage, these dogs would immediately run towards her and tear her to pieces. However, before they could react, with a ding sound and a snap, the door of a cage opened immediately. Then, the hellhound inside, after being freed from its restraints, rushed out without a care and ran towards the other party. Damn it! After cursing inwardly, Natasha also used the force to jump directly to the high platform more than 2 meters high on the side, trying to avoid a sharp edge. But the next moment she found that she was still naive. After it jumped, the hellhound attacked Natasha with its extremely amazing jumping power. At this moment, she pulled up her collar to cover her mouth and nose. She didn't want to be hurt by this unknown ghost thing without paying attention. Then Natasha also swung the signature board in her hand and flew towards it. However, the hellhound ignored all these. After catching Natasha's flying board with its head, the hellhound still flew towards her without slowing down. But for Natasha, who had expected it, the flying board just now was just a temporary attack. She just twisted her wrist and an extremely thin high-strength thin wire appeared in her hand. Then she turned sideways, and then twisted it in the air. After tying the hellhound's head with a thin wire, she also pulled it hard. In an instant, under the extremely sharp pull of the thin wire, the hellhound's body was directly separated. Then it fell to the ground. At this moment, Natasha also breathed a sigh of relief, and the whole person looked down. Even if it was headless, the body was still trying to move. Her mind couldn't help but be shocked. She really couldn't think that there was a company that could research such a thing. But she didn't have much time to think about it. With a few beep and beep sounds of unlocking, at this moment, more than a dozen cages in this laboratory were all opened at the same time. At this moment, more than a dozen hellhounds rushed out of the door and attacked Natasha. The originally small room suddenly became extremely lively. Chapter 73 Crisis ensues. I think I still miss those lovely terrorists. Looking at the dangerous situation in front of her, Natasha tilted her head helplessly and complained. Then the thin wire in her hands tightened, and she directly entangled with it. Roar. At this moment, after the first hellhound roared at Natasha, she flipped her hands and a wire flashed on the table, platform and research equipment as Natasha kept flipping over. Originally, the smaller hellhounds should have had a greater advantage, but for a while, Natasha was able to throw off several groups with her advantage over agile figure. There were even many hellhounds that were squeezed together because of the small space. And this time, after dodging several times, Natasha returned to the ground again, and then squatted down to look at the hellhounds rushing towards her not far away. At this moment, in front of them was a number of metal wires that Natasha had woven together. However, for these hellhounds that have already fallen into a state of rage, the obstacles in front of them naturally cannot stop them. Each of them pounced on Natasha with all their strength. However, this time, because of the huge acceleration, the first doghead and the flesh and blood were directly separated. In addition, the hellhounds behind began to rush up. For a moment, the scene was like a meat grinder, and pieces of meat kept flying out through the gaps in the metal wire mesh. However, as more and more hellhounds rushed forward, the huge wall of flesh and blood began to gradually shake the metal mesh that was originally a temporary construction. Those table legs tied with metal wires, or instruments and equipment, began to shake and fall due to this increasing force. After seeing this scene, Natasha's heart, which had already relaxed, could not help but hang again. Then she looked around. At this critical moment of the crisis, she had to find some tools while the wire mesh could still hold. Then, when looking at the corridor outside, Natasha was surprised to find the existence of the fire axe. Then she kicked her toes and rushed straight there. Bang! With a direct elbow strike, the fire glass also broke, and a fire axe with a cold light was lying quietly inside. But there was no time to appreciate it. At this moment, Natasha could already hear the sound of the group of hellhounds behind her breaking out of the door. After taking it out with her hand, Natasha glanced at a hellhound that had already rushed over with her peripheral vision, and then swept her back, and the hellhound was split into two halves from head to tail by Natasha. A large amount of dead blood and internal organs continued to fall in an instant. Even Natasha's original stealth suit has now been stained red by the battle. At this moment, Natasha can only pray that these guys will not have any infectious diseases, otherwise she can already predict what kind of disinfection she will face after returning. But before she could continue thinking, the remaining two hellhounds rushed towards her. This time, Natasha swung the fire axe in her hand and swept it horizontally. The two hellhounds that rushed over directly separated from each other, and then turned into a pool of rotten meat and hit the wall. Who? After seeing that there were no other hellhounds at the scene, Natasha began to adjust her breathing quickly. Although the time just now was short, every minute and every second she mobilized all her muscles to do it with all her strength. For this reason, she now feels that her body is almost half dead. But before she can completely relax, she saw that the corpse that was originally cut in half vertically began to slowly wriggle, and it seemed to be resurrected. But before it continued to wriggle, Natasha directly picked up the fire axe and chopped it up. This time, it directly chopped the wriggling dead meat into several pieces, and it couldn't even be put together. And because of this, the dead meat also completely fell silent. Damn it, I will never come here again for any missions related to this company. If this continues, who knows what monsters will be developed. Vampire, you owe me a psychological treatment fee. While complaining, Natasha began to look for other ways out. After all, the way out was blocked, and now she had no choice but to continue walking down. Although she didn't know what would be waiting for her later, it wouldn't be more disgusting than these dead dogs, right? On the other hand, after seeing everything about Natasha through the on-site surveillance, Killian couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What he didn't expect was that he had been noticed by S.H.I.E.L.D. so early, and the one sent was Natasha, the top agent under his hands. For a while, Killian was a little unsure about how to deal with the other party. Although he now thinks he is not afraid of S.H.I.E.L.D., you have to know that this department is a big cannon. As long as they think it is right, they dare to do anything, and they are only responsible to the Security Council, that is, the 5 major countries. No single country has the right to make them do anything. Their agents are almost all over the world. It can be said that there is nothing they can't involve, except what you can't think of. And now if Natasha is dealt with here, it is true that the secrets of the base will not be exposed. But it will also attract the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. In short, He can't think of developing peacefully like now. For a while, Killian's head was about to explode. At this moment, he finally understood why Sun Quan and Liu Bei wanted to let Xiao go and let the other party kill him during the Three Kingdoms period. This thing is completely a hot potato. Killing him has no other substantial benefits except unlocking a title. But if he doesn't kill him, it feels disgusting. Now Killian can be said to empathize with Liu Bei. However, as Killian was thinking, Natasha on the other side came to a pure white room under the arrangement of the deputy of the base. And here, there are all kinds of training equipment. Just one glance at Natasha knew that this place is definitely used by some creatures to test actual combat data. Ling. Ling. Exclamation mark. Ling. Exclamation mark. At this moment, a huge alarm sounded in the room. Chapter 74 Liquor. In the middle of the room, a pure black nutrition capsule containing the one she saw at the beginning also rose up. However, at this moment, Natasha began to be alert with full concentration. She didn't think that the other party would be easy to deal with after using so many means to lure her here. Roar. Then, the nutrition capsule not far away stopped infusing liquid, and gradually the unknown creatures in the capsule began to shake violently. Finally, they began to emit waves of extremely deterrent roars. At this moment, Natasha felt that her whole body was numb. She really didn't expect that this company would be so avant-garde in the development of biological weapons. Not only did all kinds of monsters emerge in an endless stream, but each one was more terrifying than the other. Moreover, Natasha also noticed that nutrition capsules began to rise one after another in other places in the room. This was obviously to deal with her. Another group of monsters was about to appear. Forget it, stop sending it, and let this liquor test the actual combat data. After thinking for a while, Killian spoke to his deputy on the other side of the video. The deputy was stunned after hearing Killian's words, and then he also respectfully pressed the stop button. At this moment, as the man pressed the button, the nutrition capsules that had risen halfway in the actual combat test room also stopped rising and began to slowly descend. After a while, they were restored to their original appearance with the floor closed again. However, for Natasha now, there was no longer much to care about. Because in front of her, there was already a giant skinless gorilla with its brain exposed, using its extremely long tongue to aggressively face her. However, what surprised Natasha was that she had been preparing for a long time, but the other party did not rush up. This surprised Natasha. But she would not think that the other party was being gentlemanly and letting her go first. Then, as Natasha slowly moved her steps, surprisingly, even though she had walked a few meters away, the liquor was still waving its tongue like a snake. At this moment, Natasha completely understood that the monster in front of her was probably blind. In order to confirm her thoughts, Natasha's hands began to shake gently. After seeing that the other party would not feel the movement, Natasha's heart did not relax. Because she knew deeply that when a creature lost an ability, it would often be given another terrifying ability by God. And now the other party, I am afraid, has extremely terrifying power in some places that she has not discovered yet. Then she slowed down her pace and tried to find an exit little by little without success. Natasha had no choice but to focus on the monster that was crawling not far away and trying to find food. She knew that if she wanted to get out, this monster must be solved. After that, Natasha held the fire axe in her hand tightly and began to approach the monster not far away carefully. Bang! Exclamation mark. And this process, until Natasha got behind the monster, she flew forward, and the fire axe in her hand chopped straight at the exposed brain of the liquor. Although she didn't know where the weakness of this monster was, she didn't believe that any creature with a brain could survive after being chopped by it. However, after hearing the movement from behind, the liquor turned at a very fast speed, and then the tongue full of foul-smelling mucus instantly attacked Natasha, and hied her straight out. Then, without waiting for her to react, the liquor used its extremely sharp claws to slap Natasha. At this critical moment, Natasha also used the fire axe in her hand to rebound against the wall in midair, and with the help of the reverse force, she narrowly avoided the liquor's raised claws. But before Natasha could catch her breath, after finally sensing the movement of the prey, the liquor immediately turned around and continued to run towards Natasha. After approaching at a very fast speed, it swung its huge claws towards Natasha. At this time, Natasha was holding a fire axe in front of her, feeling the constant friction between the monster's claws and the pure steel fire axe in her hand, and even sparks came out. At this time, Natasha happened to see medical alcohol on the side, and after a flash, she threw the glass bottle containing medical alcohol directly at the liquor not far away. Pa! As the wine hit the liquor, the fragments of the bottle instantly scattered, and the wine in it was all spilled on the liquor. Roar! At this moment, I don't know whether it was hurt by the fragments or because of the pain caused by the alcohol, the liquor only felt that his anger had exploded, and then he began to roar loudly. At this time, Natasha did not give the other party a chance to continue shouting, but held the axe with both hands and chopped it straight at the liquor's head. The liquor's survival instinct was to subconsciously put his huge claws in front of him. Snap! Then there was a sound of flesh and bone splitting. Natasha's blow actually directly chopped the opponent's claws at the connection point, directly cutting off the liquor's threatening claws. Then the liquor's miserable wailing replaced it. The whole person immediately began to twist desperately. Seeing this, Natasha also pulled away suddenly, and after jumping onto a laboratory table, she hurriedly dodged several times and pulled away. All that was left was the liquor's continuous impotent rage in the same place. Although he lost one claw, the only claw left was also constantly waved by him. For a moment, the originally good training ground suddenly became broken and shattered under the destruction of the liquor's sharp claws. Even when the liquor suddenly slapped a sharp claw against a metal wall, the sharp claw and the steel kept squeaking and the friction sound immediately produced sparks, and the sparks that jumped outward accidentally landed on the liquor. Boom! In an instant, the liquor's body, which was already full of alcohol, was immediately ignited by the touch of the sparks. At this moment, the liquor's entire body was engulfed by the flames. But for it, everything is not over yet. As if to take the last person with it, the liquor spit out its several-meter-long tongue, and swung it wildly in this small space, just to force the prey to move even a step. Chapter 75 Aftermath. Seeing the monster move like this, Natasha's heart tightened. After several times of not being hit, the monster's tongue suddenly swung towards her, and Natasha jumped up. However, because of this, after feeling the vibration, the liquor continued to wave his tongue to tie the other party up and feel the pain of the flames together with himself. Under the crazy attack of the liquor, Natasha, who was still in the air, only felt her waist tighten, and then felt that her entire waist was entangled by the other party's tongue. At this time, the liquor also pulled hard, trying to pull the other party over. After feeling the powerful force at her waist, Natasha was also fierce at this time. After struggling hard to pick up the fire axe that fell not far away, she immediately grabbed the monster's sticky tongue with her left hand and pulled it down hard. The right hand swung down without hesitation. In an instant, accompanied by a huge sound of breaking through the air, the monster's tongue also broke into two pieces. At this time, the monster, after its tongue was broken, seemed to have accepted its fate. It fell straight down without any struggle. It let the flames devour its body. After seeing the monster finally die, Natasha, who had survived many dangerous situations, was exhausted. She collapsed on the ground without caring about her image, and kept gasping for breath. At this time, the training room was no longer as clean as it was at the beginning. There was blood and bloody pieces of meat flying all over the floor. Even from a long distance, Natasha could smell the disgusting smell of death on the monster. At this time, the room, which had been quiet, slowly emerged with a few sudden smiles. In an instant, streams of gas began to spread into the house through the small hole. After a while, the whole room was filled with translucent smoke. Natasha, who was lying on the ground to recover her strength, fainted completely at this moment. Then, as the door opened, a team of Black Watch soldiers in chemical protective suits came in with full vigilance. After confirming that Natasha had no room for resistance, they took out handcuffs from behind and held Natasha's hands to handcuff her. But the situation changed suddenly in an instant. Natasha, who had fainted on the ground before, suddenly opened her eyes, and then in the eyes of a group of Black Watch soldiers, she grabbed the other party's hand with her backhand, and then with a strangle, the whole person was like a snake, and after circling several times in an instant, she used her strength to throw the first Black Watch soldier out. But this time, she was destined to be disappointed. She saw that he exerted force from his waist and hips, and threw him out with force, and then he used the rebound force to deal with the other few people who snatched their gas masks. Natasha found that the soldier clamped under his crotch was like a piece of iron, firmly fixing himself in place, without any tendency to move. Even as Natasha looked down, it seemed as if she could see the face under the mask, laughing at her arrogance. Then, Natasha felt the world in front of her began to spin. The Black Watch soldier who was previously clamped by Natasha was holding Natasha's calf with his strong right hand, and then swung it hard. Then after turning a few circles in place, he threw it straight at his teammates. At this time, the two teammates seemed to have expected it and had been waiting in place. Two people clamped half of her body at the same time. Before Natasha could start to fight back, she felt a strong force on her neck, and the whole person fainted completely without consciousness. "Take her away." With a cold voice, Natasha was immediately handcuffed by a Black Watch soldier behind her back, and then twisted up and walked out. "Boss, what should we do with the spy next?" At this time, the deputy who saw all this through the surveillance looked at Killian with a flattering face and asked, "First brainwash her and make sure all the memories of the underground laboratory are erased. Then disinfect her and let the professionals check if there are any wounds. Be careful not to be infected by the T-virus. Wait for my order later." After hearing the deputy's words, Killian said coldly and hung up the video. Next, he needed to find some allies to speak for him. Then he picked up the phone on the table, selected a name, and immediately dialed it. "Ha, Sir Killian, I was just about to call you. Thanks to you, our military has decided to increase cooperation with you these days and is preparing to order a few more Tyrans. This thing of yours is simply a battlefield deterrent on the front battlefield. With that power, even if we prepare in advance, I can't imagine how we can lose without the artillery coverage of several regiments." Before Killian took the initiative to speak, a rough voice came from the other end of the phone, but the tone revealed incomparable happiness. Recently, Ross has completely shown his face in the military. Under the leadership of his army, in the frontal combat with a tyrant, against those terrorists holding RPGs and light machine guns, it can be said that it is a one-sided massacre. There have been nearly dozens of missions, and each time with the help of the research team of Pioneer Technology, the tyrant has completed its mission extremely well. Except for the difficulty in catching people alive, there is no disadvantage at all. Even the combat data of the tyrant has been read by the top two in the military, and both of them highly praised it. After all, as Ross said, the current tyrant is only a product in the laboratory stage and has not yet been developed to sufficient maturity. If all of them become conscious soldiers, their army will be completely invincible. Then he immediately expressed his affirmation of General Ross's long-term strategic vision. After research, he even decided that the army would increase investment in the research and development of biological weapons in the next few decades. Ross was the main person in charge of this department. As long as he wanted, the military could quickly connect the Tyrant project with Pioneer Technology and increase funding. Or restart the Super Soldier project. In short, under the outstanding performance of the Tyrant, everyone had fantasies about super soldiers. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.